Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Heroes versus Villains season in review, something we haven't done in a while, not for lack of trying, but for lack of accountability. So, we're back, and we're ready to recap our most recent season, season 20. With me, I have three people. I have the winner, Alexander, say hi.
Hello.
I have the last remaining villain, Sophie, say hi.
Yo.
And I have the two-time fire-making loser, SMM, say hi.
You did not call me that. There's so many other. Okay, hi.
Sorry, the three-time underdog, SMM. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Is that better
Yeah,
for you?
that is so much better.
Can I get two-time Alliance of the season then? I feel like
No.
that's my only
So,
calling card.
For those of you that don't know the format of Heroes versus Villains, it's a pretty long pre-merge, no swaps. The heroes and villains stay the same. So the way we're going to open this up, I'm going to ask the heroes to introduce their tribe, thoughts, all that. Sophie's going to introduce the villains. I'm going to ask the heroes to go first because we're going to be hearing from Sophie a lot more in the pre-merge than we'll be hearing from Alexander and SMM. So, Alexander, SMM, when you guys marooned, the heroes tribe was obviously Alexander, SMM, Broyle, the winner of Guatemala, Kate, Delaney, the winner of Fiji, Ev, I, Jess, the winner of Cook Islands, TML, and Vish. What were your thoughts when you landed? Anybody you knew previously? Anybody you wanted to play with?
Alexander, you want to start?
Yeah, I can do that. So I feel like the most obvious person for me who I immediately was just like clinging to was Jess, who I previously played with in Cook Islands. Um, I also had previously known SMM since he invited me to play here, so it's kind of funny that we ended up going the distance this season together. But immediately off the bat, I think that Jess and I kind of clicked. I found Ev really entertaining as well. I kind of spread out my influence across the entire Heroes tribe. This kind of lasted for most of the season where I was just trying to play the middle. Everyone seemed to get along. Um, it was pretty fluid. I wouldn't say for like the first couple rounds that there was any obvious like alliances or sides or anything like that. We just kind of got along as a team and it was pretty chill.
Wait, so Alex, you mentioned the word influence. Would you say you're more of a TikToker type of influencer, or more of like a vlogging YouTuber type of influencer?
Definitely a TikToker.
What kind of TikToks do you make?
Um, Probably like the actual funny ones and not just like the dances and stuff.
I feel like you're shooting shots, but I'm not sure at who. So, anyways, SMM, what did you think about the heroes?
Heroes was fine. Those first few cycles, it was kind of hard to tell who was with two, like Alex said. Coming into the season, I knew Alexander because I voted him off pre-merge in another org, and then
So
excuse
hard.
me, I knew people. I never really spoken to them, which is new. I mean, TML. I played with TML in All Stars. He voted me off. The second time when we
Nice.
met, I kind of knew that he was gonna be like a tribe strong gamer on the tribe, which it didn't bother me because I was on his tribe this time. But
Let's
it
go.
something that worried me. Um, yeah, knew Alexander. I was kind of excited to play with the winners in the tribe, especially Broyle and Jiho. Jess was cool too, though. Wait, Gio's not on our tribe. What am I looking
Geo
at?
was not.
What are you talking
Delaney,
about?
This is the merge tribe. My bad.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Brother,
bro.
troll up one.
Broyle, Jess, and
Delaney.
Delaney. Yeah, and
There you
I was
go.
especially excited to play with Broyle. I didn't like Guatemala all that much, but I liked Broyle as a person. So that was fun. I was really weirded out to see four China reps, but I host a game with Viz, so I kind of knew Viz off the bat. It was a little bit difficult for me to talk to him, but we like talking about org formats, so that's fun.
Fair.
Uh,
And China goaded. Sophie, what did you think about the Villains tribe?
I'm gonna go in alphabetical order because I'm more organized than them. But so,
That's what's on the sheet.
yeah. So Bryson was really he was Bryson. I did not mesh with him. Um, he was always busy, so I couldn't riz him up like I rizzed up everybody else.
Okay, I will
Um,
say I've played with Bryson before. If you
yeah,
do get the chance to Rizzo up, it's lovely, but
yeah,
he's been a little bit hit or miss before. There's
yeah,
people he
yeah.
definitely just doesn't get along with.
Mhm. And he and I just ended up on falling on opposite sides, mainly because he wasn't around, so we ended up being on the outskirts whereas I was the complete opposite of always being around. So it was just not on
Romeo
similar
and
wavelengths.
Juliet, but without the love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Then there's Jaff. I knew Jaff before this. We come from the same community, like original community. It's the Mawforks community. Fuck yeah. Um, but I have played with him before, so this was like I was hoping it'd be a nice refresh from when I've played with him before because he flipped on me then. But
Nice.
yeah, but then it was the nice refresh that I was hoping for. I'm not gonna lie, because he and I were like we were vibing for a while, um, even though I didn't really go along with a lot of his shit. But yeah, and then Jason, I knew a little bit from Yesterorgs. He was easily one of the first people I started vibing with. He, Jaff, and I, that was the first alliance that I had brought to me on the first episode. Very, very funky, but they were chill as a fuck. So, they were very easy to like start talking game with and very nice. Then there's Geo. I was fucking weirded out by Geo at first. Which we know the story changes later, because he was really, really super hard to talk to, but I ended up working my social game magic on him. Jordy. Jordy is I voted Jordy first boot in Yesterorg All Stars, and that's the extent of me knowing him. So I did not have high hopes for this season. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Mage and I we hit it off right away. She and I were just two little pals, and we really didn't want to see the men fucking steamroll everything, and we kind of bonded over that, and it was great. And Marcy and I immediately just like kind of started talking, bonding. I feel, so yeah. And then there's Poe. Poe is like Big Brother vibes. And Skiwi, I just couldn't fucking read and kind of put me on edge.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you. With that introduction out of the way, episode 1 begins. Our first challenge is Simvivor Classic. It's server building. Uh, heroes are trying to make the best server they can versus the villains. We won't spend too much time on this, unlike the tribes in game, who spent a long time on this. So very quickly to recap, SMM, in 2 sentences, how would you describe the Heroes Haven server?
Complex but structured.
Okay, that means nothing to me. Can you be a little more specific than that?
Okay,
That was
you said
not
2
two
words.
sentences.
Oh, that's 2 sentences.
Yeah, not
Okay.
words. And you said 3 words regardless, but keep going.
All right. Well, the server itself, it was like we had a travel system where you could use commands to get around the different locations, and each location we kind of had like we had a little bit we had a little bit of lore in each channel that was made it feel a little bit more like an actual location, like an actual haven, if you could say.
Okay. From what I remember of the Heroes Haven, it was pretty much a mini challenge where we were tasked with going around finding which hero had which superpower. Some neat little anecdotes in each of the travel locations, as you mentioned. Villain Village, Sophie. What
Um,
was Villain Village? 2 sentences.
what the fuck is going on? I don't know what this is supposed to do. It's basically Villain Village.
That's fair.
Yep.
I'll say the vibes were elite for Villain Village. They had custom art and music, which
Yeah,
blew me away.
I did the
But
art, Jason did the music, but
it was very good. But the problem was, it was essentially an idle hunt, but the idle hunt didn't fully work, which was a bummer.
yeah,
Uh,
sorry, you go.
yeah, I was one of the judges, and I will say the vibes of the Villain Village were a lot cleaner, just because of all the custom stuff. But I mean, it just didn't work. So
Mm-hmm.
Heroes ended up winning pretty handily. I think all the judges, except for me, had Heroes winning. I had Heroes and Villains tied, which meant that Villains would be going to Tribal Council, something that might happen a few more times.
Might.
So, Sophie, what's happening in this first Tribal Council?
So, first tribal council, I was offline for the first few hours, so I just let people come to me. Um, and on my end, I got two alliances brought to me, one with Jason, Jaff, and I that I mentioned before, and then it was another one that was a majority one. I'm trying to find who all was in it. It was like Mage, Poe, Marcy, Skiwi, and I think that sounds correct. And basically when I came on, Jordy's name was basically already being pushed out, but I just went around to people being like, "Hey, I heard that Jordy and Bryson are on the outs," just to solidify, like, "Hey, this is probably going that way." And it went that way pretty solidly until like a few hours before the vote when Jordy got on and found out that the name was him, and he ended up flipping some people, and we went to a tie. But this wasn't an issue because I had convinced Geo to flip on the revote so we wouldn't go to rocks. Yeah,
Yeah, so the villains were on crack from day one.
yeah, basically. Um, and it was a fun time. I remember getting yelled at to put my vote in. It was that part was not fun. But otherwise, just the chaos vibes were kind of immaculate, I'm not gonna lie.
It really did solidify that. Wow, it's happening.
Yeah,
We're starting now. There is no
yeah.
waiting. Let's get going.
Mhm.
As Sophie mentioned, it was a split vote, and originally 5-5 ended up turning into a 5-3 with Jaff. Yeah, with Jaff voting for Marcy, Bryson voting for Marcy, and Jason voting for Marcy. So voting in the minority.
Yeah.
Sweet. That moves us on to episode 2. In episode 2, we had an individual challenge. A pretty easy one. It was Wanted. Uh, this is where we see another theme with the villains and completing challenges. Uh, this challenge was not close. The heroes had one DNF with Kate, and the villains had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 DNFs. Jaff, Jason, and Geo, the Jays, were the only one that actually finished the challenge for the villains. Which means, again, we're back at Tribal Council for the villains. But before that, SMM, Alex, can you talk to me about dynamics on the heroes coming into episode 2 and about to be in the episode 3?
Yeah. So from my eyes, I think we still were kind of like at the phase of the game where like alliances and stuff weren't really like being made that often. I mean, like I wasn't really involved in like more than maybe like 2 alliances. I think at this point, I can't remember if it was this round or the next one, but I mean, like it's kind of all the same here at this stage. Jess, Delaney, and TML had like linked up, and that had been told to me through Jess. I got an alliance of Jess, SMM, and I because I wanted to kind of like bring them together. Spoiler, that does not work out at all this season. But I think that if we had lost, I think like a couple names might have been like High, maybe Broil, Delaney, maybe. I don't know. That's kind of my take on that whole idea. I don't know.
I mean,
SMM, where were you at during all this?
a lot of the hero tribe dynamics, I wasn't really sure. Aside from the one I had with Jess and Alex, which was my rock in the game at that point, it felt a lot like individual to me. Like I would talk to people, I would try talking game, but no one would talk about other people to other people. It was not like a very gossipy tribe. It felt super kumbaya and super cohesive, so it felt scary. I was not happy to go if I was not ready to go to tribal if we had gone because I felt like it would have been really difficult to talk. I don't know. I wasn't in as many alliances as Alexandria was, I guess.
That's fair. And from a spectator perspective, at this point, the heroes started becoming one big happy cult family. One big happy family. Uh, like SMM mentioned, it was pretty much just don't talk about the vote because we're never going to lose. We're going to go in the merge 10-0. It's going to be easy, and then we're all going to win the game hands held together.
The hero did win though, so
A hero did win.
Let's
If a hero
go.
didn't win, that would have been pathetic. Anyway,
No villains were getting to the end, so
yeah.
yeah.
That being said, one more villain had their torch snuffed this round. Sophie, talk to me about it.
So, ugh. With the lines being drawn in the sand, everybody wanted to make like bridges and shit to everybody else. So I used this as my prime opportunity to riz everybody the fuck up. Minus Bryson because Bryson still couldn't be rizzed. Which was not my favorite. But at this tribal, we did end up voting Bryson, which is something that I kind of pushed heavily. To seem somewhat accommodating to Jason and Jeff because they wanted Bryson last vote, but also not at the same time because they were kind of grouped together with Bryson at this point. But also to have an easy vote to build up all my one-on-one alliances and not have to rely on the big group ones, because if you have everybody coming to you, then that's optimal gameplay right there. And during this round, I found the Jack command, but I still couldn't find the beginning of the idol hunt. And that is something that pained me up until Poe's vote out. But yeah, it was kind of an easy round. It was basically just managing people to make sure that they stayed on Bryson and that the vote would go the way that I wanted it to go.
Awesome. And speaking of idols, we'll see in a few episodes that the villains were a lot better than the heroes. But at this point, the idol clue was out. It was there since episode 1. And both tribes were on crack cocaine.
Jack
The
and Rice,
heroes were
yeah.
convinced, and I say heroes, I mean TML and every tribe VC telling the rest of the tribe that it's either got to be religious, it's got to be about Garrett, it's got to be about a sloth. So the heroes
Okay,
started testing stuff
no.
like,
That was
That
my
was
theory.
so
Okay,
funny.
stop
It was
my
Wait,
hilarious.
is that why? Is that how the sloth thing came in later?
they were convinced
I
that
was
it
not
had to do
convinced.
with like
I
a
thought that
sloth.
was such bullshit. I thought it was so
Nah,
funny when you
they
suggested that to me.
because they mentioned sloth in like 4 episode channels. I thought it was smart. Who found the idol? Not you. Shut up.
Oh my god. I didn't even look
Me
for it. Who
too.
knows? Maybe if I did, then I could have found it.
Alex, I can check your
There's
submissions
no
right
way.
now. You want me to check your submissions to see if you looked for it?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
I see at least 20 commands of Alex searching for it. So Alex did in fact search for it.
What?
Please
Maybe
don't
I'm
lie
just
on my
kind of looking at it.
podcast. Please don't lie on my podcast. Anyways,
Jeff
this
and I.
brings us into episode 3. At this point, it's 10-8. Episode 3 was a scavenger hunt race. People were paired up 1 versus 1 and would enter a command and have to find an item quicker than their counterpart on the other tribe.
I'm so mad about this challenge.
There were some close times. There were some not close times. Is the only way I could really say it. So, the first item was a pen. Jason's time of 15 seconds beat TML's of 1:36. That was not very close. The second item, the final was a hand. Kate was able to take a picture of a hand in 19 seconds, ending up winning the point. Next was finding somebody, and High was able to find it quicker than Skiwi with a time of 17 seconds, which was pretty quick. Geo versus Jess was also pretty close with 25 seconds to 30 seconds. Geo was able to find a shower. I know, the villains showered, the heroes didn't. Pretty weird. Number 5, this is a fun one. Number 5 is a fantasy book. Esteban,
Oh
can you
my
explain why this
god.
one was so much fun?
Okay, so I was in my room. I'm on a college campus. I didn't know what dictated fantasy because all I had was Star Wars and Calvin and Hobbes. So I sprinted over to the library that's on campus a few minutes away. I had to go to the 5th floor because that's where the fantasy was, and I had to find a good book to choose. So yeah, it was pretty close. Like all things.
Fortunately, SMM's time of 7 minutes and 55 seconds was not enough to beat Major's time of 43 seconds. The
I just
sixth
want to
item.
see SMM sprinting across campus.
We kept typing. I'm like, did SMM die? Like, is he still here? Like, it shouldn't be that
Wait,
bad, you know?
can I ask, were you actually trying to throw that round? Because I know in future rounds you
I
decided to
I
try
was
and
not
throw
trying
like
to.
a thousand times.
I didn't do a single challenge this season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't really need to.
Hey.
Alex versus Marcy was up next with the receipt. Alex ended up beating Marcy, which meant it all came down to which tribe was thirstier between Vish and Sophie. And this one was separated by 1 second. Vish
Ha.
was a lot. Vish was a lot thirstier than Sophie. Was able to find
Even
water
better.
in 27
Can I-
seconds.
Can I tell you what happened? Okay, so my phone does this really stupid thing where sometimes it doesn't have the send button for when you're sending only an image. So I had to retake the fucking photo so it would have that button.
I'm hearing excuses. Anyways, it looks like the villains are going to the tribal council again. At this point, it's more of their home. I'd say the main development on the hero side is Alexander mentioned it earlier, but the first 2 rounds, the lady was sort of not super well connected. But I think this is the round where she pretty much established herself as in a pretty good position. DJ described it best as her social game's like a slow burn and like an incredibly good way. Like the more time you have with her, the more you love her. And it helps when you don't go to 3 tribal councils that have nothing else to do but talk. SMM Alex were you guys getting closer to the lady at this point? This is when we started to notice that she became in a better and better position.
I
No.
would say yeah. Oh, I mean, for
Oh.
me, she was never like my priority, but she was definitely not on the bottom of my trust rankings. I feel like people such as like Hai or Kate at that point were definitely like near the bottom of my trust rankings and how I felt talking to them. Broil too, sorry. Broil, Hai, and
Damn.
Kate were
Ironic
kind
that
of
of the 2 names you said, one is a runner up and one was who you voted out first from the heroes, but
yeah, no.
it
Like,
works.
yeah.
SMM, how about you?
Well, same thing with Alexander. High was never not high. Delaney was never my priority in the tribe, and I feel like partially my fault. But our conversations never really went anywhere to where I would trust them, so they were pretty much constantly on the bottom for me. Whereas
Okay.
people like High and Kate were actually going higher on my rankings,
Okay.
especially Kate. Kate, this is where Kate I felt like was integrating better with me. Maybe not maybe not the whole tribe though.
Thank you. At this point, villains back at another tribal council. What happens here, Sophie? Walk us through it.
Okay, so this was a very sad round for me, but it was strategically necessary. I mentioned earlier that we had the 5, which I have since remembered was named the PP Pals, of Mage, Marcy, Skiwi, Poe, and I. I think that's 5, yes. And this was the round where we flipped on that alliance. We voted out Mage. It wasn't solely my idea, but it was something that I did want going into the round, so I take that as a win for me. But I kind of like felt around to see if anybody else would be up for it from that alliance, like just flipping on somebody. And Poe did seem up for it, and so did Marcy. Um, yeah, but Poe was a little bit more complex with that. Um, and it was a good opportunity for me to continue nailing down Jason and Jaff in terms of alliances and also show Geo like, hey, I'm with you, bro. I'll vote out Mage. Yeah, I'll make sacrifices for you. Yeah, even though Mage is like a sister to me at this point. And it was sad for me to do, but it was necessary. So we make the good plays and keep keep on chugging along.
I think this is the vote for the villains that solidified
Yeah.
the direction that it would go in the future. At this point, the
Mhm.
villains were a lot of duos. Jason and Jaff were incredibly close, with Sophie as a third. Marcy and Poe were incredibly close, and then you and Gio.
I was
And
also
that,
kind of a third with Marcy and Poe too, because we had that
exactly.
alliance pop up. Yeah, I was
So,
everybody's third. Very nice.
so at this point, it was pretty easy for the duo of you and Geo to just sort of navigate. I think
Hmm.
the other villains capitulating so easy for a mage vote really laid out the rest of the pre-merge for the villains, where you and Geo were pretty untouchable.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to look at that because a lot of times people think pre-merge, oh, whatever, like it doesn't affect anything. But this is a very real example of how a lack of action caused what we saw moving forwards, not just for a round, but for the rest of the pre-merge.
Because nobody paid attention to Gio and I, because they were all in their own little worlds.
They were in their own little worlds.
Yeah.
That being said, Mage goes. I was super personally sad to see Mage go. Every boot was tough. I've been hosting for a while now, and it was super exciting to see a lot of these people come back. One of the people I've wanted to see forever come back is Mage. I loved her in Vanuatu, and she was just one of those people that when you think like all time like cool or funny moves or good moves, or I guess for her sake it wasn't necessarily a good move, but it was hilarious. I still think of her in Vanuatu screwing the women over because it was hilarious. And I was very glad to be able to see her again. But unfortunately, it didn't last too long, which brings us into episode 4. Another individual challenge. This one was also not close. I don't really need to say much. The heroes won again. Surprise. SMM Alex, this is now 4 rounds in a row without a tribal. Do people start getting antsy? Is this what you were looking for? Like, what are you guys feeling at this point?
Personally, I loved it. Okay, I gotta be real with you. I was just like, I want to go up in the merge, up in numbers. Like that was kind of my goal from the beginning, was to at least have like a 6-4 advantage with heroes, so I have more room to work with. Um, I was feeling pretty solid about where I was on the tribe. Like I felt like I was connected pretty much to everybody. And even the people who I didn't feel the closest with on my end, I felt like they kind of valued me a little bit more. So I was never really that worried. I was just like, let's just keep winning. There's no need to really stress about anything. And then I think this was around the time where SMM started suggesting that we should start throwing the challenges. I'm not
If I
sure if
recall,
that's correct.
SMM, you had a pretty different view on the winning every round
Yeah.
thing. Would you like to explain that?
So I was a little bit worried on what would happen when we merged. So I didn't like that when we started. I was okay. I'm stuttering so hard right now. I woke up like 30 minutes ago. Uh, I was a bit worried about what would happen if we went to first tribal council because I was pretty close to high. But from my point of view, especially because of Viz, I was pretty concerned that high would go first. So this is where I started getting a little bit, all right, what's our future plan, guys? We can't all be a big happy family forever. Something's got to happen. Like we're not just gonna put gong and then what? So I started, putting TML's name out to or not putting his name out, but started tarnishing his reputation a little bit. With the idol stuff that he was, he kept searching, he kept taking people's ideas and putting them as his own, stuff like that. I'll be in Kate cross notes on that. Yeah, I just really wanted to keep high around in the first tribal council, so I figured the best alternative might have been someone who people could get their hands on.
Interesting. It seems like you wanted to get a tribal. Do you envy Sophie's position at all, being at every
I
tribe?
don't I don't envy Sophie's position, but I wish it was a little more balanced. I know part of our plan, well, part of my plan, I don't know why I say our, like Alexander was in on it, but I wanted to throw a few of the later pre-merge challenges, not every pre-merge challenges, but just like 1 or 2, to make sure we didn't go in with like 8 people, which ended up happening.
Whoops.
Chill.
Thank you for talking about that, my heroes. Now, Sophie, again, we're back. What's happening here?
This one, this tribal, I was a lot more visible than I wanted to be. This is where Skiwi goes. For context, Skiwi was not someone that I was connected to very well in game situations. Compared to the others, it helped me pushing this vote that I had a running joke with Jaff and Jason that ashamedly was basically just making fun of Skeevy and how he talked because he said LMAO so many fucking times. Um and that gave me good grounds to start mentioning it to them and get going with it. And it a lot of my pre-merge was basically just doing different shows of faith to people while still pushing things to go my way. Uh eh, yeah, it was a little bit of a silly, goofy time. I
I see.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines from my confessional this episode was just I'm being measured amounts of messy with Geo because that's how I do my shows of faith. I leak shit, which may or may not be obvious. Um, but ha 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 ha. Yeah. Um, yeah.
You said you were a lot more visible this episode than you normally like to be.
Yeah.
Can you explain where the visibility came from?
Um, Skeewy's name wasn't hitting at first. So I did my rizzing up of people the most that I could, and that's what made me very visible because I didn't want to keep Skeevy around because he was with Marcy and it gave Marcy more options. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That brings us to episode 5. Fifth verse, same as the first. Heroes once again win. Only 2 villains completed the challenge, Geo and Marcy. At this point, I actually made a spreadsheet of every player from Heroes vs. Villains and their past tribal performances because I'm like, there's no way it's this lopsided. And villains actually have a better lifetime record in challenges, both in percent won of the total season that they were in and of just individual immunity wins. That being said, I think it became sort of just a self-fulfilling prophecy. It sucks getting kicked in the crotch over and over and over and over and over and over again. And after it happens the 4th time, you sort of just expect it to happen the 5th time. And it makes it a lot harder to compete in these challenges. Sophie, does that sound about right? Am I off?
Chillin'. Everybody else was not doing the best, but I was straight vibing personally.
You did straight vibe into a DNF this challenge. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's fair, but also I'm not in my challenge era. I was
I,
somehow in my
I see.
challenge era in Palau, but
I
not here.
see. Okay. What happens at this travel?
Oh goodness. So this was trying to remember which tribal this was. Let me
Jeff.
check. Jaff, yep. Okay. Oh.
So at this point, again, Jaff, Jason, Marcy, Poe, Sophie, Geo. We got 3 duos with you sort of on the outline of 3 of them.
Mhm.
Geo's in a pretty similar position,
Yes.
which meant that you guys are pretty much the deciding duo here. What
Yeah.
influenced the decision to go for Jaff and not take a shot at the other side?
So this is the round I got the most shit for from everybody in Spec Lounge, which is valid. I didn't really know what I was doing here. I just didn't want Jaff to go forward because of the risk at the double tribal because we knew for sure that we were going to the double tribal next round. I wrote Jaff an entire fucking essay for why I voted him. Let me grab this shit. Basically Jaff was making connections with Poe, which is not what I wanted to do. Jaff showed me a bunch of like transparency and trust, and I was moving more towards Jason and Jaff at this point, which is that was not good for my middling. And so I needed some sort of show of faith back to Marcy after both them like after the Skiwi vote because Marcy didn't really want the Skiwi vote, if I remember correctly. That like, hey, I'm here with you. I'm here still. And I knew that I could like try and quell Jason's anger, even though he was incredibly angry, and get him back with the Riz. And then also with this, it was playing for the future as well, because Gio wanted to vote Poe, but I got it pushed back to the double tribal round. Yeah, double tribal round, and by saying like, hey, we should take Jaff out first so that they can't cause hijinks at this double tribal. And yeah, that was basically it.
I think something you touched upon is the previous round, Marcy and Poe were sort of not vibing with the Skiwi vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of what I mentioned before with how the mage vote sort of just propelled the Sophie Geo duo to being that decision making duo of the villains because they were able to push that vote and gain power from it. Marcy and Poe got weakened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you could take a Jaff out here because obviously Jason needs to come to you guys, and Marcy and Poe have been weakened, at least, because they're not getting what they want. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sweet. Which brings us into episode 6. For the first time, a villain will be immune this season. This was a double tribal council. Pretty simple challenge for everybody except for one person. It was just a jigsaw where we actually did some pro islands where you had to juggle a cannonball while doing it, mimicking the real life challenge where a ball is rolling down a maze and you have to catch it and put it back at the top. And you can only work on the puzzle while the ball is in the maze. Alex got an impressive time of 2 hours and 33 seconds.
We don't
have to comment more on that. We don't have to comment more on that.
Okay, can I comment on that though? In my
Sure.
defense, I was at first trying to throw the challenge because I wanted to give TML better odds of winning because I figured the whole
What the
TML
hell?
name thing was not going to go over well. And then it got to the point where after I was trying to throw, I was trying to complete it, and then I actually could not complete the challenge. So I literally was just.
So it sounds like you could have just done the challenge and been fine.
Yes, yeah, I would have been
Awesome.
completely fine.
For context, Alexander's time of 2 hours 33 seconds was the slowest, with the second slowest time being Poe's at 29 minutes. The winner for the heroes was Broyle, and the winners for the villains was Jason. And because Jason got the lower time, they would go to tribal second. And here's how it would work. The heroes went to tribal first. During this time period, the villains could watch the heroes. And this is really the first time the heroes and villains have been able to interact besides the heroes making snide statuses and reacting with no villains and starring every message. Before I ask Alex and ask them about what happened in this tribal, because just like the villains, you guys were on crack the first tribal. Sophie, what did the villains think of the heroes seeing the excessive amount of stars on every message, the amount they were talking, all that kind of stuff? What did the villains think?
Calling them boring as shit. Yeah, it was just basically them being oh kumbaya, but in the fake way that heroes are, and the stars and the statuses being like I said this before, fake ways of being together. And yeah, it was not a vibe that I would have wanted to be on, so I'm very glad that I was on the villain.
I swear, the villain's only personality trait is pretending that the heroes are fake. It is so funny hearing you guys talk about
I
the
will
villains.
say, all the villains within 5 minutes of coming online and seeing the heroes tribal made a comment about Marcy's like, holy cow, these guys are like animals. Gio said, I'm gonna kill them all if I ever get over there. Like, everybody was frustrated with it because I think they all made a comment like, how are we losing to this?
Yeah. I also made the why heroes are smelly PowerPoint, and I think that was a really, really good
It was
way
a pivotal
to
moment of the season. It
Yeah.
was a way for the heroes to know how the villains felt about them because it's been pretty one-sided bullying from the heroes. It wasn't enough that they won every challenge. They had to rub it in by no villains emote posting and
Yeah.
matching their statuses every round.
And
I think they know
SMM
their ass.
harassing me in Yesterorg host chat. Um
But yeah,
Win a
so
challenge and we'll talk.
the villains are spectating tribal. And this tribal was interesting. From a spectator's, I'll start by giving my perspective as a
Oh,
spec, and then
sorry.
you guys
Can
give
I
your perspective as players, if that's
can I make
okay.
a comment real quick?
Sure.
The villains went to tribal first this round.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. And then the villains got to watch the heroes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait, did we?
Yes.
Okay. I'm silly then.
We're still going to talk about. I guess we can talk about the villains first. This was a pretty pivotal round again. At this point, only Jason, Geo, Marcy, Sophie, Poe. You have Jason, who's flying solo. Geo, Sophie again a duo. Marcy, Poe again a duo. I will say what I loved about the villains is there was like some genuine connection on the tribe. So if you talked about bonding with Mage, I know Marcy and Poe became super close. Jaff and Jason, like, there were just a lot of like homies that vibed. Which
Yeah.
sucks when you're losing every challenge because then you have to vote out the homies that you vibe with.
Okay, so I mentioned during the merge that I kept a cry counter this season, and 2 of the 3 times I cried were during this vote. And there was a comment made by Marcy in the Alliance chat of he, Geo, and I called Mr. Worldwide. Very good chat. Was that Marcy was easily the most upset about this vote. And that was probably the beginning of me being incredibly mad at Marcy. Like, I'm not a mad person, but the invalidating sort of thing that is was not my cup of tea. Um, Basically, I had mentioned before that Gio was already planning to vote Poe here, and I was going to go along with it because I, again, had to manage Gio, make sure he was like, yeah, I can trust them. We're chilling with them. And so this was probably the heaviest tribal for everybody here, but it was a necessary tribal for the game because it brought Marcy closer to Geo and I. While yes, there was stuff brewing under the surface between Jason and Marcy, it never happened. Like nothing ever went forward with that, and that's what Geo and I were kind of banking on. Um, and yeah, it was a sad tribal. I didn't like it, and I'm very glad that we had the break day after it so that we could just be sad. I know that it was a blindside on Jason too, because we didn't tell Jason, which I don't know why we didn't. We probably should have, but we didn't because he was close with Poe. Yeah, it was
Thank you. And something I'd love to bring up, you talked about the invalidating feeling. I think the hard part, especially with the builds at this point, you guys have been through so much built together as individuals that, for the most part, people were close with everyone. Like,
Mhm.
every vote just sucked. So, from different perspectives, different things happen, and everyone's the hero of their own story. Well, I guess the villain of their own story in this case. But, point being, this was a really rough tribal because Poe, an amazing lad, was close with a lot of people. So it affected you, it affected Marcy, it affected Jason. It had a lot of impact on the village tribe. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Poe goes here, and now the remaining 4 villains of Jason, Geo, Marcy, and Sophie get to watch the heroes travel. As I mentioned earlier, I'd love to give a spec perspective and then Alex SMN run me down on each of your perspectives because they were similar and also very different. From my perspective, as a spec, it felt like people wanted SMM gone. And then it turned into someone that wasn't SMM going home for a reason I still don't completely understand. So, could you two explain what happened here?
Yeah. You want to go first? Because I have a lot to comment on.
Okay. So obviously from the episodes beforehand, I was putting TML's name out there, specifically to I think 4 people. Alex, who I trusted, Jess, who I trusted and thought was with me. Viz because I don't know. I thought Viz kept telling me he was on the outs, and I was like, "Hey, this is an idea. I think we can get going. Like, what do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, sure. I don't like TML." And I told Kate because Kate at that point was my number one in the game. And I guess like the second our break day ended and tribal started, I was like, "Let's go." About to pull off something big. I'm pretty sure it's like 33 minutes in the tribal. TML was like, "Hey, have you been throwing my name out?" I'm like, "Who the fuck already leaked?" And I found out it was Viz who told Delaney, and then Delaney told TML, and the shit just went down. Shit went to shit, and everything went to shit at that trouble. Um, it started turning into me versus TML, which is not what I intended, and people started choosing sides. I'm pretty sure Jess at some point did say, "I'd rather vote SMM than TML," and that's when I knew shit was fucked. I started getting very, very like antsy, very scared. I didn't know what to do. Kay was also pretty scared because she's being associated with me now, and I'm very obviously either going to be the next boot or on the bottom. Um, at some point, I did just try to get back with TML, like, hey, this spiraled out of control. That's my bad. I really fuck with you, dude. I didn't even want to vote you here. Just trying to get back into some sort of position. And this is where I kind of felt like him and Jess were a thing because every time I try to do something, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, me and Jess, me and Jess, me and Jess." Um, Eventually he did ask like, "How did this happen? Like, who did you tell about this vote?" And then my mistake was saying, "Oh yeah, Kate, Alexander, Jess," and I think Kate is what knocked him off on hey, Kate might be a problem here. But yeah, there was just a whole like I don't know, few hours where the vibe on the hero was just like, "Hey, SMM and TML are gonna talk. Let's wait for them to talk." And that was a point. I've never experienced that in work where people are waiting for two people to make up. Like, who? Why would you let two people make up? Not that we made up in the first place, but we made up. We agreed on high. Jess was also good on high, and that's where I kind of dropped off. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not gonna do anything again. Trust. And after that, other things happened that I was not involved with. So I guess I'll let Alexander talk.
Okay, so I'm gonna take it back to the beginning again because we all three have very different views on what happened this tribal, I guess. I mean, the majority of what I feel like SMM explained pretty well, but from my perspective, immediately as the round began, I was worried because I didn't think the TML name would even go through that well in the first place, and my suspicions were indeed confirmed when Vij leaked like I wouldn't even say 30 minutes, honestly. I'd say like 15 minutes after Tribal started. It was just like that. Um, I think a lot was brewing under the surface of the heroes. Everyone got a lot of antsy after we had like won like 5 straight immunities in a row. Like we were ready to go. I think I'm gonna take it back to who won immunity. Broil. I think he got really lucky. Honestly, I feel like had Kate like shoot, Kate was like 2 seconds behind Broil too at this point. I
One
think at the
second.
immunity challenge.
It was
It
over one
was
second.
very, 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 very close. We retimed it multiple times. It was insanely close.
Yeah, I think Broil got very lucky because I'm gonna jump ahead real quick. I think that basically from SMM was kind of like going home at the beginning of this tribal. Like it was kind of a done deal. Um, and I had trust in SMM. Like he was, I think, my number 2 at this point in the game. I think Jess was my number 1 and Ev was my top 3, or was my 3rd. So those were my top 3. I had a lot of trust in all 3 of them, and I wanted to keep all 3 of them happy. So Jess wanted to do SMM, so that sucked. So I couldn't really do that. Ev wanted to do anybody except for High, which I ended up doing, and SMM just didn't want to go home, and I didn't want him to go home. So midway through Tribal, when everyone was kind of set on doing Kate, or not Kate, sorry, everyone was kind of set on doing SMM and splitting minority on High, I was like, hey guys, what if we just like do Kate? Because Kate was just as involved in the whole TML thing, and she's getting away with this. And I feel like she's definitely a bigger threat. Like we can just save SMM for a future boot. Like he's pretty easy consensus name moving forward. So let's just do Kate. We can put some votes on SMM on minority, and then we'll be cool. And everyone was just kind of okay with it. There was no pushback to that, and I honestly was very surprised by that. Like it felt like people wanted SMM gone, but the moment that I suggested someone besides SMM, everyone was just kind of cool with it. Um, I think had Broyle not won immunity this round, I would have picked him as the name that I pushed instead of Kate because I still like really trusted Kate and I vibed with her a lot after I think SMM and I had like an Outlaster night with her on Roblox, and I said it right this time because I knew I was gonna be flamed if I didn't.
Yeah, good job.
But yeah, I had a lot of trust and it was hard. But at the end of the day, I prioritized SMM over Kate. And then I also didn't want Hai to leave because I was very close with Ev and Ev was close with Hai. And I was like, Ev and Hai, I want those two to be with me. Because I figured I kind of wanted to just kind of be with everybody in the tribe and keep everybody happy and doing that while also keeping SMM safe. And Kate was the only name that I could do that with. So that was kind of my perspective of it. And it went over a lot easier than I thought it would, honestly.
Yeah, so I think one of the main things about this tribal was the two heroes we have are the two that pretty much wanted to save SMM because there weren't many people that really wanted to do that in the beginning. As Alex mentioned, like people were pretty just set on, SMM through TML's name out. That's not cool. So it turned into a way of Alex maneuvering for somehow to split a vote, but also send Kate home in the split vote as opposed to SMM. Does that sound right, Alex? Am I recapping
Yeah,
this well?
and it was just so confusing because I had suggested the split vote, and I was just like SMM might have an idol, so let's just like put votes on Kate. Like let's do this. Let's get Kate out. And I feel like it was funny because the majority of the people there wanted SMM out. So if you're gonna split votes, you just put majority on SMM and then minority on Kate, and you just get it done. Like SMM, if he has an idol, okay, Kate goes. If he doesn't,
Right.
then he goes. And I have no idea why nobody fought against that because
You're telling me, man.
apparently
I don't know either.
no. I read on
Nobody
comps
pushed
later
back. They
like
just said,
nobody
okay.
wanted Kate gone. Like nobody really wanted that besides like Ev and I because we didn't want High gone, and Ev probably wanted SMM gone at this point. I honestly don't know, but like nobody wanted Kate gone, but nobody pushed against it. And the split was originally supposed to. I had this like I had a backup plan for a backup plan because I wanted the split to be 6-2-2, so I could even try and save SMM in like a revote if Kate somehow idled and like figured out she was the name. But TML went against the split, and I have more to comment on the split because I completely forgot about this. But TML, Delaney, Ev, Viz, Jess, and I, we just like didn't tell Broyle and High that we were splitting for some reason. So they immediately felt casted the next round. Like I have no idea why that was. Like genuinely did not know that we weren't supposed to tell them, and I just figured they already knew. So we split the votes, and then they were like, "What the hell?" the next round. So it was just like, "Oh god," which actually
Yeah,
helped me
this vote
in
was
advance.
like, again, crack cocaine for the heroes.
Yeah, no,
I
and
think of the
them.
heroes' names you
Yeah.
mentioned, you, Ev, High, SMM were the ones that benefited from this vote. And you were the
Huh?
last four heroes standing. SMM benefited because you didn't go.
I
Yeah,
guess so.
that's kind of a low bar
Which
there,
is crazy
but
because, again, those were the last four heroes.
yeah,
So
like
this
this
vote,
vote, I
just
feel
like the
like
early
set
votes
up
vote, really
Heroes Tribe.
determined the way the rest of the game would be played.
I
And
have a
yeah,
note
yeah,
on
and
Broyle.
TML, Delaney, and Jess were immediately pegged as a trio for the rest of the game after this because they had formed a majority alliance by pulling in Viz, Ev, and I. Um, Viz, Ev, Jess, and I actually had like a Cook Islands China thing that immediately crumbled the next round, but we'll get into that later.
Nice.
But yeah, so leaving Broyle and High out of the split vote actually was beneficial for my game, even though it was completely unintentional, but I'll get into that later.
Yeah, I was on a voice chat begging Broyle to stay after that tribal. I thought I was still in the bottom, so I was begging Broyle to stay. I'm like, you guys all voted against me. It's like he said, "SMM, I didn't even know there was a split," and I called bullshit on him. I was like, "You're bullshitting me right now. What the hell?" You definitely,
No, he
and I
was
didn't realize
telling the
they
truth.
didn't actually know.
He was
Like,
very much
how do
telling the
you
truth.
not know a split is gonna happen? Like, what the hell?
It was
You guys,
so dumb because it was just like we had them in on who was going home. Like they voted for Kate, but we just didn't tell them that we were splitting the votes, and it was like for no reason to. Like I don't even think anybody mentioned it, so I just assumed they already knew.
yeah. The only reason I knew about it was because Viz leaked it to me. That was a very common thing. Viz leaking things.
Yeah.
Viz would tell Delaney.
Yes,
I think Jess
we will
told
get into
TML.
that.
Viz told me things, And I knew the vote was Kate like 3 hours before it happened, and I just could not tell Kate. Kate, like I don't know, Kate was at work, and I'm not really sure how you tell someone, hey, they're splitting votes on us. There's not really much we can do. You don't have time to find an idol. So I just didn't tell Kate until like the votes were being read. It was tough. I feel bad for Kate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kate, if you're listening to this, but I needed to
Kate,
do
you're
it.
very
It was
lovely.
the best move I could make at that point. Sorry.
To sort of wrap up this round, I think it's cool that both for the heroes and villains, we saw one defining tribal that really solidified what was going to happen the rest of the game. And for the heroes, it was this one. Like you said, Delaney, Jess, and TML were pinned as a trio, with Vish as sort of the outlying fourth. But it was mainly those three, and they did end up making an alliance. I think they had one beforehand. Uh, the four people that benefited from this vote were the final four heroes, and it sort of just solidified how the rest of the game was going to be played. Were sort of just the four heroes that benefited here just sort of kept getting their way, and it sort of just kept happening over and over and over and over again. And that's how you play a good game. So props there. Any final comments on the Kate vote before we move on to episode 7?
Kate was so robbed. That's all I have to say. That is all I have to say.
You robbed her.
I know, but that doesn't change the fact that she was
Alex, the one
robbed.
pulling the trigger and say, "Man, why'd she die though?"
Yeah, no,
That's
seriously.
crazy.
I mean, like, she didn't really do anything wrong, in all honesty. I feel like she went home because nobody on the Heroes tribe had the balls to just say, let's just do
Out her
SM.
brain.
Or
Yeah.
let's just do
Yeah, I
high.
mean that too, I guess. Nobody who was like involved in the core alliance that like formulated the split, even though all of them had basically said they didn't want Kate to go home in their confessionals, none of them said that, and so it just happened. So I don't think Kate did anything wrong, and it was sad to see her go, even though I was, the one who made it happen.
I just wanted to make it clear that you were the one that made it happen. Anyways,
I know.
episode 7. You can feel bad, but you also got to make it happen, Episode 7.
Exactly, yeah.
We're back to the script. Villains have lost again. And this
Yeah.
tribal was very emotional
Was it?
for everyone involved,
Was it?
except for Gio.
Was it? It was not emotional.
So, final
I mean-
4. We could potentially be having a Pearl Islands of pre-merge fire. We did not end up getting that. But something that wasn't mentioned yet that I'm going to mention right now. Right
Poe.
before Poe left,
Yeah.
Poe put the starting command to the immunity idol in Tribal, like just publicly for everybody to see.
Mhm.
Before this, he had DM'd Marcy in his one-on-one, the starting, so Marcy had a little bit of a head start. But
Yep.
now how everyone had access to this idol. On the Heroes tribe, they were still becoming Catholic and didn't really.
Yeah.
Some of them found the Jack command just through brute forcing, but nobody really knew what to do from there. That being said, the idol was very relevant this round. Fortunately, again, the villains lose, and now we're at a 4-person tribal. Sophie, can you talk us through this round?
Yeah. So, going into the tribal, I think that Gio and I were gonna vote Jason instead of Marcy because Gio and I had a 3 with Marcy, but Jason was the outlier. We'd kind of set it up so that it was Marcy and Jason here, so that they would butt heads with each other and not with us, so that we didn't have to deal with any worry of going to fire or anything. Because we all know that I'm ass at challenges, right? Like that's something that's established. Um,
I think that could
but
be said for anybody on a tribe with a red color at this point.
yeah, except Jason. Um, but with that, like we're gonna like the Geo and I were trying to find the fucking idol, right? As you do. And I was working ahead of Geo and going back to where he was because I wanted to find it for myself. But then we found that it was already fucking gone. And we knew that Jason didn't have it because Jason wasn't past the red herring puzzle. So we knew that it was Marcy because Marcy had told us the answer for the red herring puzzle, which honestly was a really bad move, by the way. I don't know why he did that. I'm not going to question it.
My perspective is, I mean, part of the threat of an idol, like, you can use it a few ways, but the main two are you blindside someone by it, nobody knows and you use it, or you use the existence of it as a tool to get you further without needing to use it.
Not in F4, though.
Again,
When...
I don't know. I think if I remember his confessionals correctly, he wanted to be able to have it emerge because the villains were going to be very down bad.
Yeah.
And needed all the help they could get.
Yeah, that didn't end up going to plan because all that made me, because he didn't tell us until a while after that we already knew that he had it, that just made me mad, and I went on a tirade. Is that the word? I don't know. I went on a revenge tour to get him the fuck out of there. And then he went. Goodbye, Marcy. Goodbye. Yeah, that's it. That's the
Marcy
only emotions
robbed.
I had.
Marcy robbed.
There were
Hey.
some other
Slayer.
complications this
Shut
round.
up. What?
There were a few other complications this round. Do you mind if I talk about them real quick?
Go for it.
Jason, love the kid. Jason was struggling at this point of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The constant losing, I think he had a few things going on personally, resulted in, at the beginning of this round, him telling people, hey guys, just make it me. You know, like, it's going to be okay. Just make it me. And when somebody comes to you with a request like that, it's not like you say no. So at the beginning of the round, Sophie, was it fair to say that you, Gio, and Marcy were pretty content with just voting Jason? And I mean, it sucks, right? Nobody wants to go like that, but
Mm-hmm.
if that's what he wants, then yeah, you're going to give it to him.
Yeah, we were gonna vote him.
And at this point, Marcy had fallen asleep a little bit later into the round. And Jason got out of his funk. I wanted to play the game, which, I mean, fair. So, Jason starts campaigning to, I mean, the only other two people on the tribe. So at this point, the vote is now turned to Marcy. After discussion, basically saying, hey, I don't want to go. I want to play this game. Would you keep me in? Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Again, Marcy did have the idol. Unfortunately, overslept his alarm, did not wake up for travel. And because of that, Marcy ended up going home in a 3-1 vote with the idol in his pocket. A lot of stuff to talk about there. I'm going to briefly talk about some of it, just to be fair to all parties involved, mainly Marcy, who isn't here to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Marcy's been pretty vocal about time zones being the reason that it happened, and while I definitely agree that the timing here was not beneficial in any way, shape, or form to him, with Jason coming out of his funk when he was asleep, it's one of those things where you know Sophie and Jason are a duo, and you can pre-play the idol. You can, at the very least, I mean, when I have an idol before I fall asleep, I always say, if I don't say anything, play it. That's just me personally. Everyone approaches it differently. Not waking up in time is also another unfortunate side effect of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But all we can do is strive to be better. And if you're interested in, Marcin had a pretty long conversation about this. You can look at his confessionals. He had a little exit interview that we recorded together. And I thought we went into some pretty good detail about what happened there. But yeah, now the villains are left at 3 in the pre-merge. Mind you, this is still the pre-merge.
Oh.
And we have another tribal immunity challenge. This one was Missing Middles, in a classic. And for the first time in Simvivor history, the villains won immunity. Meaning that Alexander and SMM are back at tribal. At this point, Sophie really has nothing to talk about. I'm pretty sure all 3 villains are just like, thank God.
We were all offline, yeah.
Yeah, you guys just took a break day, which I don't blame you. So, Alex, SMM, what happened here?
I started freaking out. Freaking out.
That sounds about right after the last vote.
I mean, I think directly after the last vote, this is when the villains went to tribal. Right after that happened, I'm like, okay, shit. There's no way. There's no way I survive the next tribal. Gotta search for the idol. I think it's like
Wait,
once I
before you
find this.
continue, SMM, before you continue, can I bring up something real quick?
Yeah, what's up?
Before Alex mentioned that you wanted to throw challenges, I just want to point out the times here. SMM had the fastest time, the second fastest time on the heroes, and Alexander had one of the slower times on the heroes this challenge. SMM, were you throwing this challenge?
No, I think yeah, dude. Like, nah, I'm tribe strong. I'm ready to pegong. I'm
The
a hero.
switch
We're
up
doing
is real.
He doesn't want to go home. He's like, "Yeah, buddy, let's do it. Let's get the sticky
let's do
villains."
it. 9-1, 9-1. We're doing it.
Alex, were you throwing this challenge?
No, I was not. Surprisingly enough.
Okay, sorry. SMM, keep going where you left off. Sorry about that.
Like once I done the stunning command, which was one of the spectator names on the sidebar. I think I spent like 15 hours straight just trying to do the red herring puzzle, and this did require me to do it during class. I got 3 hours of sleep.
Quite a decision you made there.
Yeah, I just could not stop knowing that I did not have it. I think it went into the afternoon the same day. Like I was kind of just obsessed with finding the idol. I had no life. I was Alexander during the Final Four immunity challenge. I was just going ham trying to find that thing, and I did find it, which was like hype. I had the immunity. Like I was safe for at least one more tribal, and that's all I needed to have like some sort of security in the game. I wasn't going to use to make any flashy moves at that point. I just needed to survive. Um, but then having the idol made me realize like I really should try my hardest and not have to play this. And that's when yeah, we went to tribal. Me and Alexander have a talk. I think this talk started with me pinging him and saying, "Yo, dude, why don't we talk anymore? Like you're like running away from our conversations." And that's when we have a really good game talk. I think at this point Alexander already wanted like he didn't like Viz. He thought Viz was encroaching on his middle position. So he was saying some things about Viz. And that's when it clicked for me that hey, Viz is the one who got Kate sent home last travel. I never realized it was Alexander. But for me it was oh wait, Viz is the reason it's all even happened. So me and Alexander keep talking, we realize High and Broil, they got left out of the last vote on the split. So they probably realized like, hey, we're on the bottom here. And since it's Viz, I know for the whole pre-merge, Viz, I would talk to Viz a lot because I thought me and Viz were on the same side. Me and Viz and Kate had like a not a trio, but we had a little thing going on where like we were the most real ones on the Heroes tribe. So when Kate got sent home, I thought me and Viz were on the same side. Like, oh no, bro, Kate got sent home. This is so sad. But Kate Viz was the one that made it happen. Not made it happen, but he's why I thought it happened. So Viz would tell me a lot of things, a lot of things about Ev. Because I don't know about everyone else, but I was kind of worried like, what were we gonna do if there were 4 China reps at the merge? Because like that just feels a little bit off to me. So he would tell me stories about how Ev was like, really cutthroat in China, or I guess I heard something and then like over exaggerated a little bit. I don't remember, but how Ev was cutthroat in China with the idol, how you throw his allies under the bus for it, and I did kept it to myself because I thought me and Viz were straight. But when I was going to set all these things, I realized that we could implicate Ev into getting a vote on Ev Viz. And from there, me and Alex just went ham. I think that's what happened. And if Alexander wants to comment on his side of things.
Yeah. I after the cake though, I immediately like once it was like told to me it was actually during the Kate tribal. I was told that Vij was the one who leaked to Delaney, and immediately I was like, okay, that needs to go. Like SMM said, I was really just playing the middle basically the entire game. I was trying to just make sure to keep all the doors open. I didn't want to close any doors. So Vij was pretty much playing the same exact game that I was playing, but I think I realized it first. And I feel like we were never really going to be on the same page if we had continued moving forward together. And as SMM being the alternative name, I was like, okay, well, I obviously just am not doing that. and at this point there was no like Kate to kind of like pin it on and move the vote onto. Sorry, rest in peace, Kate. So at this point, I remember last tribal I had saved High because I wanted High and Ev and I to be really close. And so I used that. And SMM telling me how Gage was like throwing Ev under the bus for like being cutthroat in China. I just told Ev that straight up, and I was like, we should just do Vish because like he's the one who leaked it. He's the one who caused the chaos in the first tribal. Like, let's just cut the shit, or not cut the shit. Sorry, that was me. Let's just cut the crap. Let's do Vish. And
The
Broil,
same
and like
thing.
you had mentioned,
Yeah,
Broil
like
and
said,
High being left out of the split vote, despite that being completely unintentional, actually helped just kind of get them into on board. And I think this is the tribal that really solidified Ev, High, and I as working together for like this ended up kind of falling apart near the end game, because High made the decision to flip on Ev later on, but we'll get to that. Good for them. But I think this really solidified us three as working together, and then it also solidified like yeah, like I had kind of like fallen out of trust with SMM at this point, but
What the hell?
after our talk, no, it came back. It came back. But yeah, I had wanted to do Vish for the entire time after the Kate vote. So when the opportunity arrived, I was like, oh shit, yeah, let's do this. Like, cool
Yeah, that
stuff.
was so huge.
And then I had actually told Jess this because I was like, I trust Jess not to tell, and I don't want her to like be completely blindsided. So I VC'd her while I was in a hot tub. I told her what was going on, and she told me that she was like, yeah, that's cool. And then like
that was a
about an
weird.
hour or two before tribal, she kept checking in and being like, "Hey, can we actually do like broil instead?" And at that point, I was like, "No, I can't. I can't just change it up last second because I've already I've already solidified like my vote with people. Like, I'm sorry, but no."
I
But
have a note for Broil. This that tribal. Because
what's
I
up?
remember for Broil, the big scary part of this tribal was Broil specifically because while he was on the outside of the tribal that round, he was like when we first brought up the vote to Broil, he was like, yeah, you want to vote TML or you want to like you can we bring TML or Viz into the vote? And that's where things started
Yeah,
getting a little bit unstable. Like, yo, who what is this guy thinking? What's
just
in
a
his
little
head?
Fishy.
What's in
Yeah.
his head? So when
But
it started
That's
coming
Vin,
to
that's
vote
a
reading,
big part. That's a big part of why I think Royal was later on the merge boot is that just nobody kind of knew where he was and nobody felt
yeah.
like he was like their number one.
I'm going to illuminate the perspectives of the ones that weren't in on this vote real quick because they're not here, and I want to make sure their perspectives are seen. At this point, there's 4 people not in the vote, right? Well, 3 people not in the vote, plus 1 person who voted in the minority but knew about the vote. We had the alliance of 3 that was aforementioned, the plastics, as they called themselves, of Jess, the lady TML, and Vish, who obviously voted the minority. He went home. Who was the one that told Jess? Was that Alex?
Yep, yeah.
So Jess knew that Vish was going, but Jess didn't want to tell anybody. And this was the point that solidified, at least from a spectator's perspective, that a plastic wasn't going to make the end. Because there was a lot of fallout after this vote in the way they navigated the aftermath of the Vish vote, which I'm sure Alex will talk a lot about later. I think from their perspective, it's like, oh, this should be easy. You know, we split the vote on Kate and SMM last round. You know, SMM's still here, so that's easy. You know, like whatever. SMM, did they vote for you again here?
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
Yes, they did.
They voted for SMM again, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, all
Yep.
4.
Yeah.
They all voted for me.
Nice. This would start a trend of SMM catching votes anytime he was eligible, pretty much. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to illuminate the perspective a bit. I know right after the votes were read, well, even while the votes were being read, they were on VC together with cameras on. And they being
Oh
the
no,
group
I
of
didn't
three.
even know that. Oh my
They being the group
god.
of
So
three.
funny.
Yeah. Uh,
Wait,
very
all four are
emotional.
plastics.
I think just the plastics, because I don't think they started trying the rope at Alexandria yet. Uh, pretty emotional. Um, the combination of one, this should have been an easy SMM vote. I mean, come on, we split the vote on him last round. Why doesn't he just go? Combined with Vish being someone that all three of the people in the plastics got a lot closer with, especially Jess, made it a pretty emotional vote out for them.
Okay, Jess hid that so well. I had absolutely no
She did
idea
hide
that
Nah,
they
that
were
very
so
well.
close. I had
crazy.
literally no clue.
No clue.
Like, I was
But
so
here's the thing. I
engaged,
think
so hardcore.
as they both described in their confessionals during the game, it felt like they were friends, but not necessarily allies. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
remembering correctly, they both talked about like, wow, it is so easy for me to talk to this person, but I don't know if I
I'm
can
just
trust them 100%
really,
game wise.
I'm so lucky that that didn't really start until after Blondie, because I had no
Thank
idea they were
God.
close. No
But
clue.
thank God he
And I was
voted Viz last
hardcore
time.
throwing Vish under the bus to Jess during that round.
Yeah,
Very
you were.
hardcore.
You were. Uh, I think it started with, because again, Jess was the only one that knew. It started with Jess being sort of like, okay, my number one Alex told me, but then it turned into the wait, I really like talking to this Vish guy. I hope he finds the idol. And I think she started looking for the idol to try to give it to him. But unfortunately, at that point, the idol had been found by SMM, and nobody else had found the first step.
It's crazy that I did not do the idol at that try. I was anti. I don't know where I was when the votes were being read. I was like frantic.
I think
I
basically
did not,
like
I did not
all the
trust Broyle.
tribals, basically all the tribals, SMM would immediately DM me as soon as the freaking votes were being read. And he was like, am I good? Am I good? I'm like, yes, you're fine.
I didn't know to play the idol or not.
Only
I
you played it at
tried.
Final Four. I guess both idols could be said that way this game. Anyways, uh,
Okay.
uh, that brings us into the merge. Vish was our last pre-merger.
No, it
And also,
doesn't. Jason.
shh,
Okay.
Alex.
I have
I
to
was
talk.
gonna. Anyways, as Alex so rudely interrupted, this does not bring us to merge yet. We have to cause the villains a little more pain, and it is not enough that they are down to 3. They must come down to 2. Uh, in another not very close endeavor, the heroes win again.
Yeah.
Before I ask Sophie about what this is like, I'm going to ask specifically Alexander. I talked a little bit about it, but uh, the Alliance of 3 of the Plastics were not happy with how the previous vote went,
Yeah.
and they decided to try to pull you in.
Yeah.
How did all this happen?
So I was actually, I feel like I was never like actually going to like, my plan if we had lost again was to just go on Royal and just like I was not gonna stick with the group of 5 that we had voted with previously. They did not trust that, I don't think, so they kind of went hardcore overboard trying to flip me back, even though I was never like going to go against them again at that point. Um, I think.
To be fair, from their perspective, how do they know that? Because you had
Yeah,
just
no, no,
pushed a
no.
vote on
Yeah,
the
no,
plate,
that's
as
very
opposed to
fair. That's
the guy
very
they
fair.
wanted gone, the
I
other
think
hero
the
in the call,
issue
and
that I
then you
ran
did it
into,
again, but
though,
leaving them in the dark
I
this time.
did do it again. Yeah, okay. But I feel like the issue that I ran into is that they were like trying to have it both ways. Like they were. I think I got a lot of the blame for the visual, which is so like I had owned up to it. I was like I did that. Like that was kind of me, and I took a lot of the brunt of that. Um, so they ended up. I don't know even know if it's true or not, or if people were just telling me this to try and like negate me from flipping back to them. But they were like throwing out like, wow, Alexander is really untrustworthy to people like Broyle and High and stuff like that. So I was like, and their attempts to get me to flip back actually kind of made me unsure of if I even wanted to work with them moving forward. But there was the whole Delaney crying to me on BC thing that happened, which I won't get into because yikes, I don't even know what to think about that. Like, I think it's fine personally. Like,
I'm
I
still
think it's
mad.
like a great game move. It worked very well. It
it
got
is
you to feel
it's a
sorry for
really
them. It
yeah, no,
worked.
like I was
It
feeling
worked.
very bad
It
after
was
that.
fine. I will say, as
It
someone
was
that had to
really
watch it, it
impressive.
hurt me.
I'm still
Yeah.
mad that got Delaney villain of the season. I'm not gonna lie. Still mad.
Did you want villain of the season?
Yes,
More
I
villainous
wanted
next time.
double votes, bro.
Rip.
Should have been better.
I
But
was so good. What do you mean?
Unfortunately, you didn't win the season. So, anyways, Alexander, continue.
yeah, so I think basically from the moment that Jess leaked that the plastics existed without me immediately right off the bat, I was never going to go to the end with them. Because I was clearly the fourth that they try and rope in after that. I mean, and it became more evident as the time went on. So I think my priority at this point was Ev and High, basically. And then SMM, I was just trying to keep alive because keep hope alive.
Alexander, you were definitely trying to keep Jess in the game. Dude, don't even lie.
Okay, yeah. No. I can, Jess,
Bro.
sorry, that's in my mind. Delaney and TML, I was never going to the end with, ever. Like, that was just straight up, like, as soon as they had created that alliance without me, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's, they tried looping me back in. They didn't have to, they didn't know that. So it was just kind of weird.
But yeah, so that brings us to Sophie's final three. Unfortunately, not of the season, but of the pre-merge.
Yeah.
Jason goes here.
That
What
round
happens?
that round was easy, but also a little sad because, like, at this point, Gio and I are never turning on each other, at least on the villains tribe. We'll get into that at merge, but yeah, we're never turning on each other. We're going into merge with each other, and there's no way we're bringing Jason. Like, either of us are bringing Jason. So it was a very clear-cut vote, especially because Gio and I were ride or dies, and it sucked that we did go to tribal because we wanted to bring Jason and have him as a sacrifice vote. But you know what? It's fine. We live and let die. There's not much to talk about at all with the vote.
I mean, yeah, you had the
Yeah.
duo
Yeah.
that, I mean, at this point, the duo just got to determine the vote when there's three people left. So not really much to say, as you said.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Jason goes, and Alex isn't going to ruin the surprise this time, because for real this time, we are merging. First immunity challenge of the season. Somebody slightly unexpected wins. And I say unexpected because their previous challenge performances in Simvivor haven't been, let's say, inspirational.
Huh?
SMM
Okay.
wins individual immunity.
For the first time, 3 seasons, it's a W.
For the first time in 3 seasons.
I think I could have gotten voted out the next tribal council and been totally fine with it because I won that immunity.
This is the big moment for SMM, and now we're finally at merge. I mean, we don't really have to talk about the merge tribe because it is just the heroes plus Gio and Sophie. The main things to talk about are how the plastics push towards, I mean, everyone pushed towards the villains
Mm-hmm.
because the big kumbaya energy is gone. Everybody wanted 2 free votes. Something of note that happened right before the merge, because Marcy went home with an idol, and the villain's idol was rehidden. And Gio was able to snag the idol, meaning that Gio now has an idol at merge. Same with our immunity winner, SMM.
Gio got the idol while I was on a plane.
No, should have been better. I would have been better personally.
I wasn't solving the puzzles, but he got it while I was on a plane.
Oh,
Yeah.
should have been better.
Yeah.
Personally, anyways, I would have been better. That brings us to Boyle goes home this round. Interestingly enough, not a villain after all the kumbaya, let's get the villains out. Is this a pretty easy Boyle vote? What happens here?
It was not easy.
I was along for the ride, bro.
Easy.
I just I just didn't want it to be Gio or I. Not gonna lie. I'm gonna let y'all take the lead on this one because I was just chilling.
You can go, Alexander.
Okay. So as I had previously mentioned, I feel like the only person that Broyle had felt, or that anybody could really tell that Broyle was close to, was SMM. And as SMM being the social outcast that he is, like, I don't think he would have gone if he didn't win immunity. Like, I don't think that was necessary. But everybody, I feel like, wanted an easy merge boot just to kind of like solidify, like, okay, this is like the trajectory of the game. I wanted to work with the villains, as every other hero did. And that ended up quickly changing. I had to change trajectory again, but we'll get into that.
You came to me and
Broyle,
asked if I would adopt you.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I basically was just like, hey, I don't feel good on the heroes. And at that point, I didn't, honestly. I did not feel solid with TML and Delaney. And I wasn't sure where Broyle was. So I was like, let's just eliminate Broyle. Broyle ended up, I mean, if you look back, I was number 9 on his trust ranking, so I made the right decision here and not trusting Broyle. But I think what the real kicker was when Broyle suggested an all-hero alliance, just except for Jess and I. So I was like, okay, yeah, that needs to go. It was pretty easy for me, decision-wise.
Broyle did like pick up on the fact that Gio and I were just straight up lying about everything. He picked up the earliest out of everybody, and that got back to me through Ev, I think it was. And I kept lying to Ev, but I was like, fuck, I don't want this. And then that got Gio and I onto Broyle.
So yeah, that's the Broyle vote, which leads us to our next episode, episode 11, in which Gio wins immunity, which Gio now becomes the second villain in the history of the season to win individual immunity.
The only villain. The only other villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep.
Gio's immune here. Sophie is not immune, but a hero still goes. Jess ends up going this round. What happens here? Alex, you mentioned being close to Jess.
I did. Okay, so Jess had thrown out like High's name while I was asleep and just sort of like got a high vote going for some reason. I still don't honestly know why that happened. I think
I'm pretty sure Gio lied about it.
Wanted High out or something.
No,
Gio lied about it? Okay, I have absolutely no idea.
High's name was out.
Yeah, High's name
was very out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jess had like put together a high vote while I was asleep. I didn't really want that. But I feel like the alternative at that point was what was the alternative at the beginning? There was no alternative. High wasn't like pushing it.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm gonna lay low, let's just do High. And then I think it sort of like flipped on Jess, and I knew that it was happening because everyone was telling me. So I was just like freaking the hell out. I was like, oh, good lord. Because I didn't want Jess to go. I feel like it was good for my game that Jess went at the end of the day, but I didn't want it to happen. So I ended up going full on crazy mode. This is the round that I'm the least proud of. I ended up throwing out C and SMM's names in an attempt. And this is actually the round where I started like getting really suspicious of SMM having the idol, since he was basically just completely content with having his name thrown out and did not try and push against it at all. That was extremely like, I mean, every round prior you were like freaking out whenever your name got out, and then this round when I was the one pushing your name, you were just completely fine with it. So I was like, okay.
I think for some context as well, he also just talked to other people and no one was really buying your pushes.
Yeah.
So it's not really an idol thing. It's more of just, okay. Like,
I'm not going to push against you. I know it's not
like
going to work. I'm not very scared. Yeah, I mean, after the Broyle vote, I think I was the only person at Final 10 who was not happy with the vote. And I was telling Evan High that, and I told him I'm going to put my foot down at Final 9. So to hear Jess throwing High's name out kind of pissed me off. And Alexander said he was okay with it, which also pissed me off. So I went to I went to Ev about it. I don't think I spoke to High much as Treble. So I went to Ev about it. And I was like, yo, dude, they're voting off high. Like they want to vote off high. The villains want to vote off high. This is like, what are we doing here? We can't have this happen. And Ev and I kind of start like, we're both talking to Sophie, we're both talking to Jiho, and we're trying to be like, hey, how did this happen? Like, do you really think High is gonna be thrown out? Wasn't the reasoning here that High threw out a villain's named the Jess, and that's why Jess wanted to throw vote off High or something? Wasn't that
Yeah.
Sophie? Dude, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no
And
clue.
me and Ev were thinking like, High is not the type of player to throw out a name like this early in the tribal and at all. Like we just like didn't believe it. We didn't buy into it. So we're just trying to tell the villains that like, hey, we don't think this is happening. We think Jess is lying to you guys. And I forget when exactly the villains also started to catch on. Like, hey, wait, what's going on?
It was after
But
Gio yelled at me.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it does inevitably flip on to Jess a little bit. So it turns into not Jess. It turns into Sophie and Jiho trying to vote Jess, right? Or at least it's Sophie trying to vote Jess. I'm voting Jess. Ev's voting Jess. We can easily get high on the Jess. So it turns into a flipping game of who can get the SMM or Jiho better into voting with them.
Gio
Yeah.
was the one that got me onto Jess, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then I looked back at like some confessionals and some alliance chats. It looked like he wasn't like solidified until towards the end.
Gio's also very good at bluffing that shit.
All right. Well, maybe I
Yeah.
got blocked in Specs Lounge, but I guess it was whoever got to be then. And I know
Yeah.
Alexander went crazy trying to figure out any alternative other than Jess, but I just put my foot down there. I was just like, Alexander, Jess, Team Mountain, you're in a very obvious trio. You're in an obvious duo with Jess. We're taking two birds with one stone out here. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
I remember I read back on that chat, and Alexander was just like pleading, and I
I
was just like,
wish-
nah, we're doing this.
I wish I had thought through that a lot more. Because that would have it had big repercussions next round.
Yeah, this was huge for I think me, Evan, High specifically, and maybe you
This
and
really
Alexander.
did
Well,
clarify
during
the SMM of high as
Yeah.
sort of like the quiet power in the game.
during
Because
during-
Alex lost a lot of standing, being so vocal about trying anything but Jess.
Yeah.
The lady and Tim always throw on the outs, and Sophie and Gio wanted anybody but them. And SMM,
During-
Evan High were able to pretty quietly just do what they wanted. And yeah, sorry, Sophie, continue.
during this round too, I was trying to solidify something with Ev and Delaney. It went into next round too, but like I was dropping the hints there, and yeah, it didn't end up working.
That segues us pretty perfectly into episode 12. In episode 12, a Banjo Logic Challenge, where
Ew.
Delaney won immunity. And
Wait.
this is where, what?
Yeah. Never mind. I thought Jiho won. I'm like, no. All right. Never
No,
mind.
Gio lost by 19 seconds. Or not 19 seconds, a little more than 19 seconds. Over a minute. Anyways, I don't know why I said 19.
It's 90
But yeah,
seconds.
Delaney wins immunity. And is this where we start to see the fall of the villains?
Yeah.
So before we get to you, Sophie, Alex, SMM,
Oh,
you
what's
guys
up?
just kind of beefed. Not necessarily beef, but Alex blew up a lot trying to protect Jess and failed. What
Rip.
gets you to now want to say, hey, can we hold hands and skip to the finish line against the villains again? Like, what changed?
Honestly, so my
For me, it was
plans
survival.
changed immediately after the final 9 round, just because of how Gio's. It was not really Sophie's. Sophie didn't do anything wrong during the final 9. I mean, I kind of did a lot wrong during the final 9, but I think what really changed my mind towards working with the villains versus just targeting them outright was Gio constantly, like, near the end of the final 9, he was like, I'm voting with you guys. Like, we're cool. That's 5. We have enough to get SMM out. Like, so I was like, okay. So I
Gio's such
immediately
a bad
was like,
liar.
oh shit, I don't want to do SMM. Actually, like I didn't actually think that people would get on board with this. Like, let me actually throw out Sophie's name to SMM instead. So that kind of blew up. I told the SMM that Gio was planning on voting with us, and then he used that against Jess, which was another blunder I made. I made so many blunders during the final 9. But
Final
to
9 was
be
so
to be
fun.
to be frank, final 9 was like the epitome of how awful my game was, and then the rest was pretty smooth, I feel like, until the final 4, but we'll get into that. After that round, I immediately was just like, okay, I can't work with the villains because, I mean, A, they're obvious jury threats. I was never going to go to the end with the villains, but I wanted to take them really far and use them kind of as shields and stuff. Like 5 minutes after the vote, like, had like officially opened up tribal for this vote that we're talking about now, the Geo vote. All of the heroes just kind of came together and were like, okay, let's split the votes against the villains. And this was like pitched many times after the Jess vote, but like before immunity results. It was basically happening.
It was
Everyone
not gonna
wanted
not
it to
happen.
happen. What?
I think we actually started discussing it at Final 9. Like, me and Ab were like, all right, so we're gonna get rid of Jess here, but we're gonna do a villain next tribal, right? And same with you and me, like,
Yeah, and
villain next tribal. Like, they were already
after
gone.
final 9, I was like, let's just get rid of both villains, because I had trust in you. I had still trust in Evan high. I feel like I got away with the final 9 in terms of high a lot smoother than I probably should have, because I was like not playing against high at all, but it kind of looked like I did since I flipped the votes off of high and onto you. So I feel like I kind of got lucky there. But I don't know. I had a lot of trust in him, and I had a lot of trust in Ev, and I felt okay with TML and Delaney after Jess going home. So I was just like, let's just remove the villains from the picture.
What kind of turned me off of like even wanting to work with the villains was that you telling me right after Final 9 that Jiho and Sophie were throwing my name out. That just turned me kind of put me in the survival mode.
Did I?
And I was like, maybe not so. I don't know. I think it was specifically Jiho, but after that,
Yeah, it
I was
was
like,
just
I don't want to
Gio. I
work
know.
with a villain. After Final 10 and Final 9, after all I've done for the villains, they don't even want to. They think I'm too messy to play with. So I'm like, let's just get them out of here. At least Jiho
blamed.
specifically.
I got blamed for so many of Gio's out of pocket things.
When you're an obvious duo with someone, you're gonna get associated with
Bro,
what they do.
no, not this round. Is the round where I started telling Ev and Delaney, like, hey, I don't fucking want to be here with Gio anymore. And I had tried to say that the round before.
Both of them leaked that alliance, by the way. I don't know why, because I figured like, oh, 1 sec.
Hey, who would want to work with the villain anyway? Not me. Not this guy.
I'm
Not that guy.
so cool. I'm so
But
cool.
yeah.
But I knew Gio and I weren't getting very far, and I knew something was up. I just didn't like completely know where it was falling. I had my
And
guesses, but
yeah, I think you made a really good decision not pursuing the fact that something was up, because if Gio played the idol,
then
then
it would
I
have gone
think
on to me.
yeah.
I would have been out in the
So
revote. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it wouldn't have
Well,
gone
I
to
mean,
revote.
even
If
SMM would
Gio
have
plays
just
his
played
idol,
his
Well,
I
yeah.
play my
idol.
idol. I
Oh
play my
yeah.
idol. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit. I don't. This
Yeah.
is where I think
Honestly, if
TMO
SMM doesn't
and
play his
Delaney.
idol, then SMM probably just goes. But I feel like SMM just plays his idol, and then he's fine.
Yeah.
I think this is the point where TMO and Delaney just ultimately lost the game. Like they lost any agency they had in the game, and I think they were never going to win at the end. This is their last chance to like make something happen to increase
Yeah,
their odds.
I
It would require them
think
to bring 2 villains into the final 7, but the way we split our votes, it freaked me out since it split up me, Ev, High, and Alexander, and
Yeah.
then Delaney and TMO were voting in the majority, meaning that they could have easily flipped and just not told anyone.
I'm still sad I'm 1 vote off of getting on the record sheet. But alas.
I think
Yeah.
had Delaney lost Final 7 immunity, then it could have been her.
It was
Like
supposed
very
to be
well
her.
might have been her. Yeah, it was really supposed to be Delaney at Final 7.
The trend for merge essentially was just me and Gio being left in the dark, me trying to reach out beyond Gio because I didn't want to be with Gio and people not believing me, so then I was stuck with Gio. Is the trend for while I was in. It was really, really fun.
I gotta be real with you. I ate up every one of your guys' lies about the villains tribe.
I know.
Most of the
did.
heroes did.
I was so
Yeah.
sad for Jason and Sophie, the duo that got sniped at the end right before merge. I was like,
Yeah.
I
What the
was
hell
eating
I was
that
in
up.
there? Are you serious?
I ate
Yeah.
all of that up. I
So
trusted
now
them way
most of the
too
heroes
much.
just sort
No,
of said, "Oh my goodness, what they're saying is gospel."
So the thing with that is, for a lot of people, I told them while I was on VC, and VC is where I lied the best, even
It
though I
was
had some major VC
so,
blunders.
so
Um,
impressive.
and so whoever Geo told first didn't fucking believe it, but who I told first did, and I think that that is a fucking
Yeah,
difference.
I remember, you, Ev, High, and I were on VC, like, right after the merge happened, and you were listing off all of the vote counts, and they were, like, all fake, basically. I mean, except for, like, the
No,
Unan
all
ones.
of them, all of them
You
were
listed
fake.
off without a hitch. Like, I don't know how much y'all practiced your story or, like, got it straight, but,
No,
like, that was so impressive. I believed it so hard.
we had notes in
I think
our
they
one
mainly just had an outline and would go
yeah,
based on the outline.
yeah, and I threw in some of the like actual like accurate emotional shit, like being sad at different tribals, all that
Mhm.
shit. To make it believable, because you have to add anecdotes in there to make things believable. But Geo doesn't express emotion in an obvious way, so it's not believable. I don't know. It's yeah. I'm
Anyways,
angry.
that does mean that Geo goes here, and we're down to our final villain, Sophie. Unfortunately, Geo did go with an idol,
Yeah.
which means another idol has not been played this season.
Yeah.
That seems like a trend that might continue. Anyways, episode 13, Delaney wins immunity yet again, 2 in a row now. And our first victim, who's in the call, ends up going.
Yeah.
Big bozo moment. So,
None,
how did Sophie go?
Real.
so can I say my side first, because yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so beginning of this tribal, I was trying to like I was reconciling with Ev and High because they were the two that voted me, but they're also the two people that I was closest with, and I was treating it all like a oh, free real estate. And I basically knew at this point TML is full of bullshit, Delaney is full of bullshit, SMM is full of bullshit, but I
What the
didn't,
hell?
and Alex is also full of bullshit. But I didn't have anywhere else to go or who to believe. And Ev starts telling me his whole life story with the game so far. And I was like, oh fuck. So I'm very fucked here. But there was still like the high vote that I was pushing. And then I decided to save high because high actually save high because high actually tried to talk to me about things. I didn't realize there was no chance in hell that TML was going. And that was where the big blunder was.
I think the fact that you were able to pick out Hyde in the first place to potentially boot, I think that was the smartest move you made, you made that cycle. That
Yeah.
would have been, you could have won if you got High out.
hmm But
That would have
I
been
was
crazy.
worried about how angry it would make Ev.
Wouldn't
And
matter.
also, it would have mattered because Ev was the only person that was actually being straight up with me to any degree.
But you have 4 people.
But would I be able to trust you going forward is the question.
Well, you wouldn't need me. You'd have the other people who voted with you.
I know. Like the you being the 4 people.
Oh, probably.
Eh,
But yeah.
Anyways, it seems like the natural progression of, there's only one left. We might as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sophie ends up going. Not too many fireworks because, again, the Geo round set this up and the idol's gone, so nothing to
Wait,
worry about.
sorry.
I think
Can I
there's a lot of
comment
fireworks.
on this tribal?
Yeah, what's up, Alex?
This tribal, I feel like, I think if I remember correctly, Delaney and TML were pushing Ev the entire round. And I don't, can I ask you a question, SMM, genuinely? Because I still am
What's up?
confused. Why were they so convinced that you wanted to do Ev?
When TML told me, my whole thing going to the end game was I want to make sure no one felt like I was ignoring them. So, and
Okay.
I wasn't hearing out their pitches. So when TMO came to me with Ev's name, I was like, no. Then I backtracked. I'm like, you know what? That could work. You're not stupid, TMO. This could happen. And then when things actually started happening, he's like, just tell Alexander you want to vote SMM. We can get Alexander. I mean, you want to vote Ev. And I was like, nah. I don't think that's the move here. And Alexander also wouldn't be straight up with TMO and be like, no. He'd be like, I'm just
No,
gonna vote
I
wherever
told
SMM's
TML
gonna
no.
vote.
I
You
told
told
TML
TML
no
you're gonna
multiple
vote wherever
times.
I'm gonna vote, putting me on the spot. And I was like, what the hell?
No.
Both of
I
you.
said TML. I told TML no to that like multiple times, and then at the end I was like, because he wasn't listening to me, I was like, okay, just ask SMM what he wants, because I knew that you were going to go with
Yeah, I
Sophie
hopped
over
on
Ev.
voice chat with TML. And I started just shouting at him in my dorm room. I started telling him like, TML, your bond with Delaney does not mean shit. Delaney's not gonna vote up Ev here. You bonded over Jess for nothing. If you vote Ev here, you are voting yourself out. Vote with us or you're
Yeah.
gone.
And, like,
Yeah.
the 3-2-2 was imminent. Had that not happened.
Yeah, it would have been so nice. Because what I was trying to do during that was
Over Ev.
perpetuate a split, like get you guys to split between Hai and Ev. Well, no, me and
And it
Ev.
was like
It was
really
working.
working too.
It
It was
was
working.
working.
It was working a lot. Like, and I just kept on telling. I was like, TML, like, no, I'm not voting Ev. And
No, because I was telling Ev like, get these two onto me. I will take it, and then we will keep the others on you, and we will do the vote. But it didn't. It
Mhm.
didn't work. It
and
didn't
then I don't know what the heck. TML and Delaney ended up pitching a plan where like one of them, or like I would vote for Sophie, and then or I don't even freaking know. They pitched a plan where I would vote for Sophie and be out of the vote or something, and then but like we would pretend that it was actually like TML or something who voted in the minority. I don't know. It sketched me out. Didn't like it,
Yeah.
and I was just like, I eventually I was like, well, I need to vote on Sophie, so I was just like, I went to TML. I was like, ask SMM what he wants, and I'll do whatever, because I knew that SMM did not actually want Ev to go.
I
So,
think it might be a
and I
bit
mean,
confusing.
Both of you came. Oh.
I really did not want Ev to go.
I think it's a little bit confusing as to why me and Alexander are suddenly voting TML and Delaney without any context. How we were voting with them. Alexander, why'd you vote Sophie again? Like, what was your reasoning?
My
Why did you want to
reasoning,
vote Sophie?
my reasoning is because it just set me up the best for the end game. I had like crafted this plan in mind as soon as Jess went. I was like, let's just get both
Because
villains out, and then we can get Delaney out. And Delaney and Sophie were kind of swapped back and forth. Like one could go
yeah,
at F7, the other could go at F6. Either would work, and then Delaney won immunity at F7. I think it probably would have been Delaney at F7 had Delaney not won immunity.
Yeah.
yeah. Because
But
Alex,
then I was like,
you were like big Riz man for the heroes, and I would have fucked all of that up.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was extremely like dangerous to let you survive any further, because you had like everybody convinced that you wanted to go with them moving forward, and I don't know how you did that, because Delaney and TML,
Riz,
they
it's the
really
Riz.
did not want you to go. Like they really wanted Ev to go, and it was just so impressive. And it was like the final 7 was probably the move that I think secured my endgame position, besides the whole
Or
having to
like
win
made it
F4
boring.
immunity to get to the
Ayo.
end. It did make it boring, but
It made it boring, but you could control the boring because you were on
yeah,
top of the boring.
exactly. That is what I wanted.
I mean, I voted Sophie because, I mean, at Final 8, I went to TML and High, and I was like, yo, all three of us, we're probably going to lose at the end, right? So let's just go together. High, people think you're a GOAT. TML, you played shit. And me, the jury hates me. So why don't we just all go through together? Our odds are
Oh,
better
all of us
together.
love
Yeah, I didn't realize that. But
you.
so me and High TML, we weren't explicitly a thing, but they both knew that's what I wanted. And I know that's what TML wanted too. High was just like the odd one out, I guess. So me wanting to save TML, it was purely because of that. I didn't want TML to go because I thought if by voting TML out or not letting TML get his way here and not getting voted out, would ultimately be the end of my game, or so I thought.
But yeah, I think that wraps up Sophie's elimination, bringing us to episode 14. Loved ones. Alexander had Teddy Guy, Ride or Die, Cook Islands, at least in the pre-merge. Delaney had Coffee, the Fiji Powerhouses. Ev had Steven, the real life besties. High had Fix It Felix. They've been close a long time. SMM had Joey. I mean, I guess they go to college together or whatever. And TML had Flair. This challenge wasn't that close. And let's see who won. Alex and Teddy won a challenge. Alex won a challenge. And Teddy won
Wow.
a challenge. Both are equally as surprising.
I tied for most immunity wins this season and was nominated for challenge. So the surprise in your voice there, that was a little hurtful.
I do have the aggregate performances of heroes and pre-merge challenges.
We don't need
And I
that.
think you're
No,
ninth
that's
out of
okay.
10. You might be
10th?
10th.
Okay,
might be
who
10th.
got 10th after I got
Actually,
a
wait, no, Alex,
2-hour
it's you.
time
Sorry,
on
it's
the
you.
challenges? Okay, I was about to say.
Anyways, Alex and Teddy, like maybe just Alex, I guess, are reviewed here. Who ends up going here?
Delaney.
Delaney.
Was this easy? Was this hard? Like, talk me through it.
It was. I mean, emotionally hard. Game wise, extremely easy. This was basically planned to happen for like the past 2 rounds. We had the votes secured. Everyone wanted it to happen. So it was going to happen unless she had one immunity. In which case, I have absolutely no idea what the fuck happens.
Well, you're lucky she didn't want immunity again.
I think if she
Okay.
won immunity, I would have tried to push Ev.
I think we go to Rocks
then,
then, unless High flips. Honestly, High probably flips at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if I flips that soon.
Maybe
Yeah,
have
that's kind of where because I have immunity, so I just go Rocks. I don't care.
I'd probably just
Like,
say my idol. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
oh wait,
anyway.
no. In that case, if Delaney won immunity, then I wouldn't have immunity. So I don't know. I mean, I probably would still go to Rocks. But anyways, why are we even talking about this? Anyways,
I don't know.
I think Delaney and CML play again. I think I mean, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but everyone seemed to think I was going to be okay voting Ev. So I mean, besides SMM, I think SMM knew that I wasn't going to vote for Ev. But Ev and I hid our connection pretty well for the most part until the end. At the end, it got a little fishy, but the votes were there already. There was pretty much no question in my mind that I needed to start taking out the big threats left in the game. I had already planned this in advance. Like, name-wise, I wanted to go, and I'll list this down. After Just Went Home, I wanted Gio, and then Sophie or Delaney, and then the next round, this round, I wanted Delaney or Sophie, whoever was left, and then I wanted SMM, and then I wanted to give Ev fire, and just go to the end with TML and High. And I'd say that worked out about 80%.
Well, that pretty neatly wraps up Delaney going home, which brings
I
us
think
to
there's a
the
little bit more
finale.
to it.
Oh, there's more? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, at least from my perspective, it was not just jury management that round. I think with Ev and Delaney and me. I mean, I think Ev was jury managing her. But for technically, not the idol, but I know we got into a voice chat, that last voice chat. I was trying to make a note of it because I know Delaney really liked it. But we got into a voice chat before the travel. I think the night before travel. We were just talking, rizzing, all that fun stuff. I think that was I don't know. I'm just happy I was able to talk to Delaney before she went home, just because I feel like that voice chat is what made us better friends, instead of just like voting together and then not voting together in the beginning. I know Spectan just saying that I was gonna make a big idol play, like a big flashy idol play there. But considering I didn't play him at any of the other travels where I caught votes, especially that final 12 one, the smartest thing I could do there is just play the idol, but not like just show that I have it, not make a play. It's like, hey, I could have played it, I could have saved myself here, like if I needed to, but I never had to. I don't know. I feel like that in going into the final 5, that made it very much harder for High to flip because it's just you can't get that off you.
It did, and that was pretty big. The realization for the jury, especially that, like, he has the record for votes against, or at least at this point was going to get it, or at least very close to getting it. and never once felt the need to play the idol. He kept it. And that's big. That the idol, again, even when not playing it, is still a move, right? To play it or not to play it, either way, you're still making a move and a statement by doing so. So that was a really big moment for SMM's game.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brings us to the finale. DJ's Task Web Challenge at the Final Five is our first finale challenge, where our Challenge Beast nominee Alexander got the lowest time, and the winner of the challenge.
Oh God.
Sorry, I felt like I had to mention that. High wins immunity. How does Ev go home here? Because I've heard a lot that High's not gonna flip on Ev. They're super close. Ever since the pre-merge, I've heard that from you guys. So
I mean,
Yes.
straight up, it's Alexander and Ev. They're voting together. They're both trying to vote me off. I'm like the supposedly the biggest threat to win at that point.
Which
And then it's me and
you
TML.
were,
Who does it?
and we had correctly predicted that as well. And you
yeah,
just
so
did
at that
not
point you
believe
were. The
it.
jury was kind of on fire with you, like in a good
Okay.
way.
TML was under the impression that the only way he was going to win is if he picked a side and stuck with me. So me and TML were voting together. We're trying to vote off Ev. And then there's High. And Alexander, you want to give your take first on what was going on?
I think my not my biggest, my second biggest mistake. F9 in its entirety is my biggest mistake. Second biggest mistake in this game was thinking that High would not flip on F. I still don't think it was the correct move to make, but I still have a lot of respect for them for doing it because I think from the in-game perspective at the time, I think it makes a lot of sense. Ev and I had sort of pegged SMM as like the big threat to beat at the end. And I think a lot of like the merge stage people had like kind of hyped up people like Delaney and Jess, and like near the mid merge stage it was sort of Ev and Sophie. And SMM was never really like hyped up to be a huge jury threat. But I mean, if you just take a step back and look at the story, I mean, like you said, he saved the idol for however many rounds he had it. Nobody knew how many rounds he had it until he had told us he had it since like basically the Kate vote afterwards. It was extremely impressive. And I felt like the best move at that point was to vote for SMM, and I had planned it out already. And I didn't think that High flipping on Ev at that point was very likely, and I was wrong. So that was a mistake on my end.
Yeah. I mean, I was just telling High the facts. Like, if you want to bring not TML, you want to bring Alexander and Ev to the Final Four, right? That's when High wanted to cut Ev. I had to keep telling High, like, yo, Alexander and Ev, they're not going to flip on each other. They're not going to vote each other. You're asking to just get sent to fire at Final Four if you expect that one of them's going to vote for the other. I think that's what kind of did it. I know Ev gave their pitch to a High as well that same night. It was more of an like emotional pitch, like, "Hey, I'll throw Final Four immunity for you. I'll do whatever. Please, just let me. They bring me." I think initially that did get High on. I was originally going to vote with you guys on me, and when you told me that Ev was pitching the High, and High didn't tell me, that turned my radar on. Like, okay, wait, something's off here. And I think I stayed up until 5 a.m. just to talk to High and just to pitch them. Like, that voting Ev off here is just the smartest move. Like, differentiate your game from Ev. You can claim over what Ev did. You got to do it at some point because if you cut Ev at 4, it's not going to look like your move. It's the given move. So it's not really anyone's move.
I think you
So you got to
touched
do
on
it
it,
here.
but this round was really good for High. They
Yeah,
were
it was the
the
smartest thing they could have
determining
done.
vote. They cut the person that had the most similar game to them, and they made a statement. I think this was an incredible round for High.
I think if High did the other thing, it wouldn't be tied second place. It would be third place. They would have been. There's nothing you can't get back. You can't come back from having that much
This
power
was a great
and
round for
misusing
High.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads us into the Final Four. Build a Simvivor, which somehow some people didn't expect. Not really sure how.
I thought you were gonna pull back other final immunity challenges for this challenge. I was expecting Tower of Power.
I do have a Tower of Power made, but it's a heroes and villains tower versus power, and there were no villains, so I didn't feel like using it. Alex wins final immunity after a Herculean effort of studying and prep work.
7 hours.
Light work.
7 hours.
Light work.
Oh my god.
But yeah, Alex wins a very deserved final immunity challenge. And we know what happens here. There's a few things. SMM solidifies being the most voted person in Simvivor history in a single season.
Yeah.
And SMM gets to go to a second fire, but this time in the merge.
Yeah, I was trying. That was such a tough round 'cause I knew High was just gonna vote me. Like I couldn't fault him for that. Like you don't.
As I
There's no
should.
reason to vote your TML. Yeah.
As I should.
I tried pitching myself to both Alexander and TML. I tried my hardest to make sure they didn't talk to each other about it. Alexander was more of an emotional pitch, just like, hey, I get it. I'm not on the same tier for you as Evan Jess were, but I get it. Don't worry. And I think I think that's what got him. I don't know if he got mad at me or if he got sad, but that's what I think ultimately gave me fire for a pitch. I think he was always going to give me fire, but I think that's what really solidified, throwing his game to give me fire. And TML, I was trying a more logical pitch, like, hey, you can get plurality here. Like, who do you want to lose to, me or Alex? It didn't end up working because Alex ghosted him for hours, which wasn't even intentional, but that's why
Yeah,
TML didn't give me fire, or I guess 2-1-1.
I literally had class and I was at an advisor meeting, so it's not
Yeah.
intentional in the slightest. But I
I
guess
guess
it
TML
ended up
again,
working
Alex.
out. I'm sorry.
Before we get into what fire making was, Alex, why did you give SMM fire? Because it made 0 sense for your game, and the jury was pretty soured by it.
I mean, personally, my entire mantra coming into the game was to just have fun playing with the people I wanted to play with. And I put that on my parchment for SMM during the Jess move. And I felt like voting SMM at the end, while being obviously the correct move. And I had pushed SMM literally the round prior. Like, it was very clear that I knew SMM was the big threat to beat. I feel like it would have just like kind of ruined the entire season for me to just not give the person who I wanted to like play with the most during the season the chance to win. And he had pitched this whole story about like, oh, I had lost in fire before. Like, if I go out, I want to go out in
Well,
fire
it's true.
again.
It's not a story. It's true.
It was that
It's
never really
true.
got to me. It is true. That never really got
He
to me.
told me the
But in my
facts, and I
mind,
don't like the facts.
I was just like, if I just vote SMM here, I feel like I win. I wasn't just completely certain about that, but I felt like I had a really good chance of winning against TML and I. But it just didn't feel like the move that I wanted to make. It was definitely an emotional move, but it was like a move like, I mean, if we were in like IRL Survivor and the prize is $1 million, fuck you, SMM. I'm going to the end with TML and high. But this is a Discord Survivor game, and I am really good friends with SMM, so I gave him the chance to save himself, and I put it up to fate 50-50. Let's go.
Not 50-50. That would imply. Anyways.
Oh my god.
I got the answer before TMO, okay? This
Yes,
is not fair.
my father would always say, as a very important lesson to me, that son, life is just one long reading test. Both SMM and TML were on the Heroes tribe, so struggled with reading comprehension, and both struggled with multiple parts of the prompts. Fire making was a quiz about the server, just like things they could find around the server if they looked for like all of 2 seconds. Nothing was really all that hidden. SMM got the answer first, but didn't format it correctly
Yeah, for the episode
and
one,
ended up losing because of it.
I read episode 6 as like 2 words. I didn't comprehend that 6 was a number. Until after I
Well,
lost, I was like, oh
that's a
shit, 6
hero
is a
moment.
number.
That's a hero moment.
Yeah, I thought it was a word. My bad.
Jeez. But SMM becomes their last juror in a second fire, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we now have a final tribal of Alexander, High, and TML. Sophie, SMM as jurors. Can you guys sort of run me through what happened here? Because there was a lot of, from what I saw, as somebody could see Pondy, was a lot of the jurors are like, okay, we think Alex played the best game, but they don't like emotionally some of the things he's done. Delaney was the biggest, like, hater's the wrong word, but like outspoken critic of Alexander's game.
Yeah. I don't know. There was some weird vibes that people were having. I had a different point of view than everybody else on the jury besides Gio. I didn't want to see TML win. I didn't want to see Alex win. They were not my picks in any world, essentially. But yeah.
I think what's cool about this FTC is that they all capture three pretty different parts of the game.
Mhm.
Ty did a really good job playing from the position of like not suffocating power, but just sort of you needed high in order to make things happen. They positioned themselves in a way that like you got to go to high, and even when they did cut people, nobody really hated high for cutting them.
Yeah, like High played a damn good game, and
Absolutely, yeah.
they like I don't know it had a lot more oomph to it for me than TML and Alex's did.
Speaking of, TML's game was, as someone mentioned way in the beginning, uh, TML found a group of people he liked and ran with them until the wheels fell off. He was the last surviving part of his original alliance of the plastics. And it was pretty known where he stood on pretty much everything. He wanted SMM out all game, and he finally got it. And he had some proponents for him in the jury because he was so hard allied with them. Then lastly, we had Alexander, who, since he's been in this call, his game has been talked about a lot already, and we already have that context.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember going into jury, people were just like not big fans of Alexander's game. For me, going into the jury, my goal was to get people on Alexander's game. I think I lied like multiple times about Alexander's
You
game.
sure did.
I know the second Jess was like really like distraught, like, hey, like I think Jess was gonna vote for high because like they didn't know how Alexander like if they really prioritized Jess, and they said I think they asked me and Ev like, hey, did Alexander like have me at the top of their trust rankings? And I knew damn well that Ev was at the top multiple times, me or Ev. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, Jess was you were here's number one every single point, like you Jess and you guys were a duo, which was a total lie. I just did not want to see Alex lose FTC. He was easy the most like I don't know, in my eyes he was like the hero of the season, like straight up. Like he was the most heroic, loyal guy you can ask for on an HVB season. So I wanted to see him as a face. So I did whatever I could to help that.
Seems it worked pretty well, considering Alexander ended up winning the season.
Yeah.
That being said, votes came in. Alex, you ended up winning the season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I am still making your emoji.
Awesome. I'm very excited for that.
Now, season's wrapped up. I have questions that I ask people at the end of every season, so I'd love to ask them to you now. The first one, uh, we'll start with Alex. Alex, what was your return to Simvivor like? And what did you come into it wanting to do? And did you succeed in doing so?
Okay, so this season was extremely conflicting for me because during the season I was like miserable like most of the time, but then afterwards I looked back and I was like, you know what, this was pretty cool because it was my first ever win, first ever returnee season, and it was awesome and I loved it and I don't regret playing. There were certainly some down moments there, but I got picked back up. We're cool. I think moving going into the game, there was like 6 goals that I kind of set myself out in my mind. Number one, I
That's a
wanted to
lot
make
of
the
goals.
merge. Yes, I did have a lot of goals. I wanted to make the merge. That was number one. Number two, I wanted to tie my original placement of fifth. So that was kind of a jump. Number three, I wanted to beat my original placement of fifth. And then number four, I wanted to have my birthday in the game. At number 5, I wanted to play regardless of being a hero or a villain, just to kind of negate the whole theme. I don't really care. And then number 6, winning would be awesome. And I completed all 6 of my goals. So that was pretty cool.
Base.
Thank you. Sophie, how about you?
Okay, so for I coming into this was very transparent about the fact that I didn't think that I was going to be able to top my Palau game. My Palau game is still like maybe top 5 of all the orgs that I have played because I just fucking love the game that I played there. So my goal was to still play an impressive game, but not confine myself to trying to beat how I played there and just play how I want to like play. And yeah, because my game has changed a lot since Palau. So I wanted to just like be a lot more fluid. My goal was to get to loved ones. I was one fucking episode short.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
Jose.
Well,
Yeah, I feel like I did achieve my goal of just playing how I want to, playing to the best of my ability in and not basically like confining myself, you know? Yeah.
SMM, how about you?
yeah, ultimately, not everyone gets to 3 times to win a game in one of these games, in one of these things. So ultimately, just wanted to play a game where I felt satisfied with, which meant winning the game. I didn't really care how bad I played as long as I won, which didn't end up happening. But as compensation, I think I played a pretty darn good game where I can still look back and I remember getting voted up All Stars and being really sad about it for like a month. But coming out of HBV, it was just I don't know, I just felt proud. I felt satisfied. Like I did this.
Mhm.
So ultimately coming into the season, I had a lot of expectations, like winning an individual immunity, which I was able to do. Make the merge, yep, happens. Single digits, all right. Third time's a charm. But yeah, I think I hit everything except for winning, which is honestly fine with me, considering what happened. It was a fun game.
Awesome. Starting with you this time for the second question, SMM.
Oh shit.
What do you hope future Survivor players bring to the table?
One thing I've noticed with a lot of Simvivor winners, especially the 3 Cook Island winners, is that they play a lot of dominant on the top games. A lot of, I guess, not want to say dominant, but just top strategy. I want to see some more winners where they're playing on the bottom underdogs. You haven't seen as many in recent seasons. I just want to see. I guess you can kind of Joseph, but I want to see some more chaotic OTT strategy winners. Someone who gets to the end by their own merit and not just because they were able to stay on the top the whole game.
Mhm.
I think
I think
Jaff
that'd
is
be
pretty
really
similar
cool.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
yeah.
OTT, but like wasn't like stranglehold on the game the entire time.
I
Mhm.
just want to see more of that. Less compies, less perfect games. I got no votes cast against me. I want to see some in the dirt raw gameplay strategy. I want to see some of
Yeah.
that.
Sophie, what about you? Or
Very
pretty much the
similar.
same.
Yeah, very similar. I want to see some big ass strategy moves, like not being scared to do things for your own benefit, even if it burns other people. Because a lot of what Survivor is right now, Survivor orgs right now, are is that fear of strategy. Like that's what orgs are turning into, and I don't like it. But you know, yeah.
Alex?
I want future Survivor players to play however the fuck they want to play and just go out and make the moves that they feel emotionally and strategically. Because playing emotionally, you can still win. There's precedent now. I can't say
Boo.
for the past 19
Boo.
seasons. I cannot say for the past. Hey, I cannot say for the past 19 seasons if there was another winner who played as emotionally as I did. But there is precedent, and emotional gameplay leads to entertaining stuff. Okay, I'm just saying. Like be OTT all you want. If that's how you emotionally like love, like if you want to be OTT, be OTT. Just be yourself. Play however the fuck you want to play. Make it entertaining. Enjoy yourself. Because like I mean, I feel like it kind of ties in. If you just are too scared to make the moves that you make, then it just turns into your what. With looking back postseason, did you really do? Did you enjoy your? And if you can't say that you did, then that's unfortunate. And I feel like if you just play and make moves that you want to make, then you're going to have a good time regardless of if you make it to the end or not.
And don't be invis. Don't be invis.
Why? I love being in Viz.
Ain't no way.
Yes, when you've hosted me, you know I love being in Viz.
Yeah, but you were
Until
a
I
fun
decide to
invis.
win. I'm in Viz until I decide to win. Anyways, last question. We'll start with Sophie this time. What does Simvivor mean to you?
I think Simvivor is easily one of the best communities of orgs that I've been in. I've been in a lot of toxic communities for reference.
Augers.
Yes, sir. My orgs rise up. Okay. But yeah, like it's a it's I don't know. It's a weird question. It's a good place for me to be able to hang out with people that also like the same things that I do and being the annoying little shit that I am. That's what it means to me.
Okay.
Yep.
SMM, how about you?
I mean, Survivor means a lot of things to me. It was the org that ultimately got me into the org community.
Yes, sir.
First org. So
Yes,
being able
sir.
to play here 3 times, leave my legacy, it does mean a lot. Always fun to talk here. Always fun to be around the community. There's a lot of cool people. You meet people from different facets of life, and all in all, it's like one thing you can say about Survivor that's not the same with like any other community. Is that Survivor is ultimately like an org of like heroes, underdogs, and friends.
Mhm.
That's why I think it's kind of I don't want to say it, not memorable. It's kind of
Recognize.
ironic that the villains went home pre-merge, all of them, because I think
Hey,
Survivor is an org of heroes. I love that.
hey yo, hey yo.
It's a fun
There
community.
2 of us made it through, bro.
Yeah.
Though
That leaves
also
our winner. Oh, yeah, sorry.
though also SMM on that, I have been told many a time by at least one host that they don't know why I got villain of the season of my season. So,
Of your season?
yeah.
What do you mean?
Moss told me that she doesn't know why I got
That
villain
with
of
the
the
pig mommy milkers. So you made us sit through that? Villain.
season.
Who else would get it from Palau? I don't.
Alexander, what does Survivor mean to you?
It's it was perfect.
Alexander,
I like
you're being a
your
robot
word.
right now.
Like
Yeah.
Oh shit! I told you he's a bot.
Game
Get him
bot.
out of here.
I'm sorry, is the game
oh,
bot the one
Rescind his
talking about
win.
emotional gameplay?
no,
Rescind his win. He's a bot.
hold on one
Garrett
second.
was here all along. Alex, you want to try again, buddy?
POV reading Alexander's FTC speech.
Good thing he sent me the answer in text. I'm going to read it out loud because it looks like Alex isn't able to talk. Alex says that being the second org I ever played and not playing the best, it meant a lot to be able to return to this tight community and actually win the game.
You hear me again?
Yes, welcome back.
Okay, so this was my second ever org, first org that I was ever actually proud of the game that I played in. And as Sophie and SMM touched on, this is basically the community of people that is it's just a really tight community. And I've pretty much been active here and there throughout the entirety of like since my season. I've made a lot of friends here. Some Viber After Dark shout out, the best chat in the server. And I think this org or this server being my first win, I think I wouldn't have chosen to be win anywhere else. This is like my favorite group of people, and it's awesome that I got to not only return but actually win in this server. It just means a lot. Like I can't really put into words. Like I wanted to win for like the longest time, and to be able to do it in the server that I would have like picked over any other is just awesome.
Well, now that's awesome. Are there any final closing comments from anybody before we wrap this up?
Ev is awesome. Love you, Ev. You're the best.
Yeehaw.
King, you're robbed. I love you, iconic. W. Wait.
Geo smells.
Found the shower before Jess did, though.
Yeah. But he
What?
still smells. He doesn't use it.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening either. I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening either.
Oh, Jess and
Uh,
Biz, you guys are weird.
Cringe.
Cringe.
No, Jess and Vish are
No.
awesome together.
They're not gonna
Cringe.
listen to this.
Not for real though. Like, I did forget to talk about that because
I'm a Jess and
that
Vish supporter. Let's go.
that made me so happy that two people who didn't really know each other came into the season and were able to make something like this. I mean, that's freaking awesome.
Right? Hands off.
Like it's very cute, and I wish them nothing but luck and success because they're adorable. But yeah, with that, thank you all for listening. This has been another season in review that I do every season. Don't fact check that, and have a good day.